usually do this on Sundays. It's usually called Sundays with Omar. But because I won't be able to do this tomorrow, I decided to move this up to today. So tomorrow there will not be an episode of Sundays with Omar. But anyway, thank you very much for being here, Alfred, Melinda, Peg, and those of you coming in as well afterwards. Thank you very much for those who watch this later on. One or two things I wanted to talk about. Well, one thing I want to ultimately talk about is mental health. Every so often, I do some checklist reminders about mental health and what you can do to improve yours. I am not a doctor, but I say this about talking about mental health because I find some of these things have really worked for me or for people I know. So I'll be talking about mental health in a few short minutes. But I do want to talk about one or two things before that that I don't anticipate will take too long. Renee, hello to you. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for joining us here. First of all, I want to talk about voting. And obviously, look, I know a lot of us probably are not thinking about voting at this very moment. We have our minds on lots of other things. It's the summer. We're getting towards August, the so-called dog days. And so we have lots of other things in our minds. We're probably planning a holiday or a vacation. We're seeing people, we're having people over, or we're going somewhere else in the world. And so we are focused on that. But I really think we need to be focused on voting. I think the most important thing, there's lots of important things, of course, in our lives that go on and on the public landscape that we know of. But to me, the most important one is voting. And Angie Decadence checks in and says, good morning. Good morning to you, Angie. Nice to see you here. I really think that voting is very, very important. I think everybody who is watching this would agree. But I do think it's the most important thing to focus on right now. I mean, it's not the only thing. I guarantee it's obviously we know that, but voting is so significant. And we really have to not just talk about voting, but really have a plan to vote. And it's so essential. There's a great website that I would advise you to look at, and it's called iwillvote.com. I'm going to actually type this into the chat, and hopefully you'll be able to click on this or make a note of this in case you need to, or in case you know someone who needs to. Because I think this website, which by the way, the website, if you look at the bottom of the website, once you look at it, it says it's paid for by the DNC. Just an FYI on that. But it's a really important website. It gives you a lot of information about voting in your state, deadlines for voting. There is, I think, most recently the the primaries in lots of states. And so you'll probably see primary deadlines for your state. Arizona, I looked up just a few minutes ago before coming on here, and they talked about the fact that there was a deadline to vote in June. Of course, the primary elections in Arizona were this week, July the 21st, et cetera, et cetera. So for those of you who have not voted yet in the primaries or have not planned to vote or don't have a plan to vote, please look up iwillvote.com. Could you do that for me, please, pretty please? And pass the website on to members of your family, your friends, people on your social media, people who subscribe to you and follow you on Substack. Post this website and tell them, hey, look, you know what? This website is a great resource, which it is, to check your registration, to also get registered to vote, and also to tell you what the deadlines are, and also to tell you what IDs are required. So I mentioned that website for that reason, because I look at Substack, I look at all kinds of things with social media, and the discourse is not about voting mostly. The discourse is about the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Of course, I posted an image about it myself yesterday. The discourse is about the Epstein files. The discourse is about the Supreme Court. But none of these things, right? None of the things that we've just talked about, mentioned about the discourse, I should say all these things rather, are affected by what? Votes and your power to vote. And we really need to have a really full scale plan in advance of November to vote. And I think it's just very important to focus on that. The antics at the White House are what they are. We warned people about this, black folk especially. We warned you about this so much. What was going to happen if you put this guy back in? You know, the black woman warned you as well, and many of you warned other people as well what was going to happen if you put that clown in there again. And so here we are. So for me, my whole thing is our focus has to be the power that we have. And the power that we have is in our VOTE, vote. And the power that we have is in resources that we can share with each other. So I just wanted to start with that. Voting is fundamental. Okay. We know that reading is fundamental. And sadly, a lot of Americans are not reading as much as they used to. But we know that voting is fundamental. And that's really the important thing that we really need to focus on. None of these other things that people focus on will really matter without voting, right? All those things are affected by our power to vote. It's the power that we have. And now the other thing I want to say about this before I go on to talk about mental health is this. If you know someone who did not vote in 2024, I really do want you to, if you haven't already, please have a conversation with those individuals or persons that you know for a fact did not vote in 2024 and ask them why they didn't vote if you haven't already done so. Listen to what they have to say and then ask them what are the things in life that they really care about and find out what those are, obviously, and then emphasize upon them that all of those things that they are talking about, that they care about, are really emphasized and affected by you voting or not voting. And then you have to talk about how these things are tied to your vote and who has the power to have an effect on the issues you care about. And you need to break that down to them. It may not be the easiest conversation, but it's something that we all can do. So I really urge you, if you haven't done this kind of work yet, please do so. You will find it to be empowering to you. And I think you'll find it to be empowering to the person or persons you talk to. And I think it's very important that we do not leave this kind of work to October or November, because by then it's way too late. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the importance of voting, communicating voting. You have to get people, you have to educate people, you have to get them to understand why voting is important, why it should matter to them, why voting matters. Talk about how the Republicans and Donald Trump wouldn't be doing what they do, and the Supreme Court wouldn't be doing what it does if your vote didn't matter. So these kinds of conversations, if you have not already had them, are very important ones to have, I think, at this point with people that you know and care about. And so I just wanted to spend that time talking about that, because you have to educate people, motivate people, mobilize people, and absolutely galvanize people to get to the polls. And you really need to, if it's your family members or friends or partner or whomever, have a conversation about a plan to vote. For example, are you driving someone to the polls? Can you do that? How many people can you take to the polls? Can you arrange with people that you know? I know November seems like a long way off, but it really isn't. I mean, we're almost at August now. So it's very, very important, folks, that you develop this plan with people you care about. I am going to be talking about mental health today. Hello, Vicky. Good morning to you. Before you came into the room, Vicky, I was explaining to everybody that before I talked about mental health, I would be talking about the importance of voting and communicating to people that you know and care about why it is important to vote. Listen to them and allow for them to tell you what matters to them. What issues do they care about? So, Vicky, that is why I am currently talking about voting. And that's what happens when you don't arrive at the beginning of this Substack. But I don't mind you really at all coming in late to the Substack. But you do get to miss things, but you can watch them back, Vicky. As Adam rightly says, Adam, good morning to you. You have to scare people to light a fire under their asses. I know he didn't say that word, I did. You do. And depending, Adam, on who you're talking to, you do. There are some people that you may talk to who you don't have to really scare at all. Then there are people that you talk to that you really do have to scare. And it depends on who those people are that you know, Adam, and anyone else watching. It depends. It really does depend. Sometimes the same conversation doesn't work, or the same approach doesn't work with everybody. Um, it just depends on who it is that you're speaking to. But I do think whether you're scaring somebody straight or not, Adam, I do think that what you really need to do also is be a good listener to the people who may not have voted in 2024, because I just think that's you have to. You have to be able to listen to what they say, even if you find what they're saying makes no sense to you. You're trying to get them to vote, and if these are people you know who did not vote, um, what you say and do may be the difference between them being moved to vote or being intransigent and definitely not voting. So your communication style does matter. Some people you might have to scare straight. Other people you really might have to use a very different type of conversational technique, shall I say. Vicky says, I will vote. I will encourage my grandkids to vote. That's fantastic, Vicky. And we all vote in my family. My grandson voted in the Maryland primary rights, Vicky. That's really important. Thank you. Ah, that's why you were late. Wonky laptops. Ah, Vicky. Oh, Vicky. It's all right. I'll let you off this time. Ah, yeah. Okay, it's all right. You don't have to explain. But thank you. Thank you, Vicky. Leanna has joined us. Hello to you. I don't have to scare my family to vote. We all vote. Yeah, Vicky, it's different for everybody, obviously. Um, look, I mean, Adam used that word. And as I say, I think in some cases, not you, Vicky, but in some cases, people might have to do that. Um, but in other cases, as I said earlier, you use a technique that's a bit less dramatic than that, because there are a lot of people who really are confused. Some people are still remain confused, and they've been fed a lot of disinformation. And I think sometimes we do. Before I get to the mental health portion of this episode, I really do think a lot of people have been avalanched by disinformation and misinformation. And when you couple that with the fact, and the Atlantic magazine, The Atlantic, as you know, that magazine, recently did a fairly good article, I think, on the decline of reading in the United States amongst Americans. When you add those two things together, it's a pretty rough road. And, as I said, you cannot scare everybody straight. You have to be discerning and use your discretion about who you do that with. But there's probably some people that do need that. But then I think for many people, there has to be a different conversational technique. Adam writes, I don't want to scare the types that go into a state of emotional paralysis. Writes, Adam, can I discourage one of my sons in laws to not vote? Ella? Yes. If I think what you're saying there, Vicky, about one of your sons in law, yeah, maybe you can tell him to not vote or not vote for who he's probably going to vote for. I think I know what you're talking about. Um, look, this is some folks. Oh, let me read this from Vicky. Some folks think their vote doesn't count or won't be counted. I subscribe to the Atlantic magazine. So do I, Vicky. In that article, I don't know if you've seen it, about recently in the last couple of weeks, I think it came out, about the decline of readership in this country. Is a very real thing. The New York Times had an article about this several months ago as well, about how maybe I think readership has gone down by 25 or 30% from 10 years ago. Was the New York Times blurb story that I briefly read a few months ago. And I think the Atlantic says similarly the same kind of thing. It's a real problem. It's a real, real problem, you know? So, yeah, reading is fundamental and voting is fundamental. And registering people to vote is fundamental. That's why I mentioned the website earlier, iwillvote.com. Please, please do read, get that website, put that website up for yourself, and spread the word on your social media platform. It's a really easy thing to do. That contains all the registration information for every state, all the things you can do to register to vote, everything. It's just fantastic. It's a site paid for by the DNC. It's a site that is very helpful. I think anyone who cares about this country and cares about voting needs to be registering to vote, needs to be spreading that website, iwillvote.com, to everybody on their social media feeds, on their Substacks. I mean, this is really important. And I'm going to be talking a lot more in depth about voting in the next few weeks. I've said this for a long time, but I really will be doing that because, again, we are coming up to August now. And I just get the feeling that people's heads are not in voting. Their heads are in the Epstein files or in something that Donald Trump did last night or in some other thing, right? Or obviously this war, obviously is this illegal war which is going on or something else. And we're not focusing on the power that we have. We need to focus much more on the power that we have. I really, really do. And we have fallen very far in terms of how we access information and where we're getting it from, Adam. Adam writes, everyone is getting their news from memes on Facebook and such. Embarrassing how far we have fallen. Yeah. And you know what, Adam? I tell you where this really began. This really began, in essence, prior to 2020, but it really began during the COVID year of 2020 when people were locked in their houses and really all they had to communicate with was their phone or their laptop. And that's when this avalanche of misinformation and disinformation came in. And I know it happened in 2016, but really, it really took off in 2020. But this is such an important thing, folks. We really need to be discerning about what information we're getting. That's a key thing as well around voting. We have to encourage people to vote. We have to teach people to vote. We have to educate people into why they must vote. What is in it for them? What is the investment? Because people are saying, there are people who go, oh my goodness me, you know, if I vote for this, what's going to happen? You have to educate people into how these processes work because there are literally millions of people in this country who think that as soon as you vote, something's going to happen dramatically and immediately. And people don't understand how government works. They don't understand how federal government works, state government, or the government that's closest to them, the local government. And I think that's a really important thing. It's a really, really important thing to emphasize to people and educate people into why their vote makes a difference and why it matters. Whether it's a close race, whether it's the fact that Vice President Harris, if she had picked up another 2 million, if another 2 million people voted for her, or you know, if 5% more people voted for her, she would have won. You know, I mean, if 5 or 10% of that 90 million people decided to vote, she would have probably won. Presumably, they would have voted for her, I would hope. Because the people who stayed at home, they didn't have a problem with whether they should vote for Harris or not. It was either Harris or the couch. That 90 million, hardly any of those people were Trump supporters. The Trump supporters came out and voted. It was the Harris people who were on the fence between Harris and the couch. And pretty much all of those 90 million people chose the couch. And if only 5% of those people decided to go and vote for Harris, we'd be talking about President Harris in the White House right now at a White House correspondents' dinner that would have only needed to happen once because no one, at least I can maybe say this in hindsight, would have dared. The security and all that stuff would have been taken care of to a point where no one would have been able to get near President Harris. That's just my reading on it. I'm not naive, but that's just me. Let me just read this before I get to the mental health portion of this live. Thank you very much for joining. Yours truly, Omar here on this Saturday edition of Sundays with Omar. I'm not doing a Sunday with Omar tomorrow. Um, so this is why won't be able to. So this is why I'm pushing this to today, and then the following a week, of course, the following Sunday after tomorrow, I'll be back to the regular Sundays with Omar, and of course, it will be August, and I believe it will be August, wouldn't it? Maybe I don't know. Whatever. August 1st, I think, is a Sunday. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, August 1st is definitely sometime in the next few days. That I can guarantee. And then we're back to Sunday, and I'll be doing the giveaways again. So that's coming up next month. Adam, I'm going to just read out one thing Adam says here. I respect those fighting for the victims of Epstein and others, but that is not going to even move the needle in winning the midterms, in my opinion. I totally agree, Adam. Adam, thank you for saying that, because I've been saying this. I didn't say it directly in this Substack Live, but I have said this on a number of occasions previously, Adam. Um, yes, these things are issues to look at, but the Epstein files, I'm sorry, it does not affect. Yes, it does affect survivors, and that's very important. You know, really, though, that is not going to be the thing that galvanizes people to vote. The things that galvanize people to vote, as Adam, I'm sure you know, and everyone else watching this knows, are the economy, jobs, food on the table, prices of that food on your table, gas prices, education, healthcare. It's still the same seven issues, right? Abortion rights does, you know, these kinds of things are things that galvanize people to vote. Basically, I mean, abortion rights is definitely one of them, but even the even more fundamental ones, the bread and butter ones, like the economy, jobs, again, gas prices, food prices, housing. I mean, there's some bedrock issues. And the Epstein files is not going to be the thing that I think, at least, is going to move the needle. I agree with you, Adam, 110%. And yet there's so many people who are on these platforms, including this one, who talk about the Epstein files every day. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that is not. Look, listen, people can focus on whatever the hell they want to focus on this Substack, or on whatever, on any Substack platform, on any Substack live. I get it, but I'm sorry, that is not going to move the needle. I really think people who have these large platforms on here should spend a lot more time talking about voting and strategizing around voting, and how to educate people on why voting is important, and how to mobilize people, and how to register them to vote, and how to encourage them to get involved. I mean, that's another thing we need to do, is encourage people to get involved in talking to elected officials, local governance. I mean, there's so much education that needs to be done. And I just think that so many people are busy talking about exactly the same thing, and you know what those things are. It's either Trump, it's either left, right, or it's Graham Plattner, who I talked about late last time, or it's something else that really, in the grand scheme of things, is not going to address the power that we have to do this. VOTE. We need to be having fora and videos and instructions and articles, and I'm going to be doing some of these myself, that really do put forth the blueprint of educating people on voting and how to vote and how to have these conversations with people, because we cannot just assume that everyone's going to show up and vote. We cannot assume that the 90 million people who stayed at home in 2024 are going to come out in 2026. We can't assume that. The trend lines look pretty good over the last 18 months, right? The trend lines suggest that that will happen, but we don't know for a fact, and we must run out every ground ball. So, look, that's what I wanted to say about that, you know? Um, and look, there's a lot of opinion about a lot of different people, I just think that we need to focus on our power. There's a lot of people out here, and I know Adam talked about some celebrities doing perhaps more harm than good. Some of them did more harm than good, and the two that you mentioned, Adam, certainly I think ended up doing more harm than good. Clooney and Michael Moore. I think they did more harm than good. I agree. I just think what we should be doing, Adam, and everyone else watching, is focusing on our power. Remember, folks, in general here now, you have more power than you think. And every time you watch the corporate news media, I don't know how many people do in this chat, it's all about the panic and the fear and the anxiety. Bum, 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 bum. Panels talking about red hats and this and that. I'm sorry, all that stuff to me doesn't matter. You have to focus on your power. And I see these people on these networks, and I can't stand these networks anyway, and I really don't watch them. After the dinner last night, they're all of them. They're talking about, oh, he put on a red hat. So what? So what? What are we going to be doing? Yeah, I mean, we have to just be more proactive. So, um, focusing on all the other nonsense, I'm not saying act like it doesn't exist. I'm just saying focus on what we can do. Don't let some madness at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue affect what you do. Yes, we know the guy's trying to steal the midterm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But what are we going to do? Just sit here and panic about it? Just sit here and get worried? Or are we going to actually activate ourselves and mobilize and vote, in the words of John Lewis, like we have never ever voted before? The choice is ours. We've got that choice, right? We can sit here and react to every little thing that goes on. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't keep your eyes on things and be aware of what's going on, but we can all have our hot take. Lord knows, the hot take society is in full effect. And that has caused, Adam, by the way, that's caused a lot of damage too. Everyone's got to have something out immediately about an issue. And nobody's out there proactively talking about how we need to mobilize people to vote and how we need to register people to vote and how we need to educate people to vote. No one's doing proactive hot takes on getting that done and how we need to actually mobilize folks to vote and need to listen to the people who didn't vote. But we're all sitting here, not you necessarily, but people are all sitting here going on about other stuff that we really don't have that much control over, by the way, to an extent. Anyway, I spent the first almost half hour here talking about the importance of voting, how we need to educate people, the things we need to say to people that we know personally who did not vote last time out, and asking people and listening to them and asking them why you didn't vote and what issues do you care about in life, and then marrying their answers to the importance of voting and why voting will affect the issues that you care about, and then getting those people you're talking to understand who is in the position to affect the issues that those people you're talking to care about, and understanding that your vote for that particular person, excuse me, makes a huge difference. Excuse me. So this comes in stages. It's not a very it can be a very linear conversation, but it goes in stages and building blocks. And so there is an education about educating people like you and me about how we approach these conversations on getting people to vote. It's not just going vote, vote, vote. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I've said that here many times. But what is really needed underneath that, for those people who don't vote, think that voting doesn't matter or doesn't count, is a really structured conversation about A, what are your needs? What do you care about? And if you didn't vote last time, why? And I want to hear and listen to you. And then I want to ask you what you care about. What issues do you care about? If you didn't vote in 2024, what issues did you care about? Or what issues do you care about? What issues did you care about in 2024 when you didn't vote? And just listen to them carefully and then put these dots together and connect these tissues. It's not a straight line conversation. You might be talking to someone for 15 minutes, a half hour, an hour plus, or you might be talking to them for 5 minutes. And you have to also talk to them about their local governance, because there are people, and this is the last thing I'll say before I read your comments and move on to mental health. There are people in this country who think that voting in federal government elections, for example, in the elections for president, in those elections, means that all their issues will be solved. And a lot of the people who think this are not even aware of local government right in their backyard and not even cognizant of knowing or understanding that local governance takes care of a lot of issues that they may care about. So you have to, if you're going to have these conversations with people, ask them about local government. Have they voted in a local election? You know, this is really what we really need to do in my closing analysis on the voting is we really have to educate people about governance and about levels of government, local, state, federal, and how they work. That's really what, and I talked about that earlier, but we really need to do that. So there's a lot of we need to have voter literacy, voters being literate, and we also need to um, educate people on how government works, and also that local government is arguably the most important government that there is. And man, bring back Schoolhouse Rock too. By the way, civics is sorely missed in this country. Thank you very much for your patience. I just wanted to do that for a bit here. I'm going to read out your comments and then I'm going to go to the second and final portion of this episode, which is going to be mental health. So if you've just joined, you have not missed anything regarding mental health. I spent the first part of this Substack talking about voting and the conversations we must have with people in our families and in our friend circles who may not have voted, and also conversations with people who may have voted in terms of, hey, look, what's the plan to vote for November? Are you going to vote early? Are you going to vote prior to the election day, which is voting early? Are you going to vote on election day? If you're going to vote early, are you going to do mail-in voting, or are you going to drop your ballot off at a drop box? Given what we know, and I've got to say this, so I'm glad I reminded myself of this before I go to the mental health portion. Given what we know about the United States Supreme Court and a decision that Clarence Thomas wrote the majority opinion for back in February of this year, that said that U.S. Postal Service workers and the USPS in general cannot be held liable. Listen carefully to this now. Cannot be held liable under the Federal Tort Claims Act for deliberately refusing to deliver mail to you. So if a postal worker has your mail but doesn't deliver it, or doesn't deliver it to you, or has something you're mailing out but doesn't deliver it to the addressee, to the person on that piece of mail that you want delivered out, you cannot sue the United States Postal Service for a tort under the Federal Tort Claims Act. That was part of a Supreme Court decision. That was the big ruling in a Supreme Court decision back in February of this year that Clarence Thomas was the author of. And hardly anybody knows about that decision. I've talked about this decision for a number of weeks at different times, both on Substack Live and on the Politicrat podcast that I do, and hardly anybody is talking about it. No one's talking about it. And that decision is one of the biggest reasons, A, why I strongly recommend that you vote early if you have early voting in your state, and B, why you need to really drop off, if you're doing early voting at all, drop your ballot off at a drop box. That would be my preference for anybody. Now, if you want to take a chance with the Postal Service, you're absolutely entitled to. But if you do that, make sure that you mail off the ballot far in advance, as far as possible in advance of Election Day. The Supreme Court obviously also last month made a ruling that made it clear that ballots can be accepted up to 5 days after the election, as long as that ballot is postmarked no later than Election Day. That was a big Supreme Court decision last month. But again, the February decision that many people aren't aware of makes very clear that a U.S. Postal Service worker can intentionally not deliver mail to you, and the US Postal Service cannot be sued or held liable under the Federal Tort Claims Act. Go look it up. Everything I say is documented. You can go and look this up right now. The decision came down in February of this year. I forgot the name of the case, but you can look it up. Clarence Thomas was the author of the decision, and I'm telling you, people, if you're going to plan and to have conversations about planning to vote, make people aware of this. There are lots of people in this country who love to vote on election day. Be aware, depending on the state you live in, if you vote on election day, and especially if you're a black person voting on election day and voting in a particular part of your town, where, for example, the black parts of town where they only have maybe 5 machines and there's about 300,000 people basically. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but not much. And then you have the white part of town next door where they have a million machines and like 15 people waiting for them. You know, you can see what that is on election day. And that means as a black person voting on election day, and there are a lot of older black people who like to vote on election day. It's part of a tradition that they like to do. And there are older white people who do too. And there's a lot of Republicans who generally like to vote on election day. But when it comes to black voters voting on election day, if you're voting in one of these states where they have long ass lines, in Georgia, for example, where you're not allowed to pass water out to somebody who is waiting to vote, be aware you could be waiting for 3, 5, 6, 10+ hours. And this is why I strongly recommend, and I think Georgia does have a form of early voting. This is why I strongly recommend that you either go directly to a polling station that has early voting and vote there in person, or you vote by putting your completed ballot in a drop box. You can do the post office too, but a drop box is safe and secure. It belongs to the state, and it's a really good thing. So that's a couple of other things about voting as well. And again, I'll talk about some of this in more detail in the next few weeks. Hello, Christopher Vaden, and hello to you, William Robertson, excuse me. I'm sorry, William, for mispronouncing your last name. William Robertson has joined us as well. Vicky writes, no Substack tomorrow with me. That is correct. And some breaking news has just come in. The Democrats in Maine have chosen the progressive Troy Jackson. That is a breaking news story from the New York Times. Troy Jackson has been selected by Maine Democrats to replace Graham Plattner. So it will be Troy Jackson up against Senator Concerned. And you know who Senator Concerned is. So that is the official race now. It will be Troy Jackson, who is a progressive, on the ballot. And from what I've read about Troy Jackson, that's a very good move for Mainers there on the Democratic side. My elected officials don't want to hear from me anymore. Well, Vicky, you wrote that, but I think that's a good idea. That means you're doing something right, unless you're cursing them out, which maybe would account for why they wouldn't want to hear from you. But if you were wearing them down, if you're just repeatedly letting them know you're in the building, that's good, because they have to be kept honest. And I don't care if they're on the local level or not, but the local level is where it's at, folks. And people really need to be cognizant of that. And that's why there's a lot of education that needs to be done. You know, if I was teaching in a college or something like that, I'd do a complete course on voter education. I would absolutely teach a course on governance and on local government and on what's going on. I mean, there's lots of stuff going on locally here in San Francisco, including a really pretty disturbing case of sexual harassment, sexual assault. Um, and this guy who is running for local office here, speaking of local office, in one of the districts here in San Francisco, has been accused of literally, and excuse me being graphic here for 5 seconds, accused of squeezing the testicles of another man during a house party in 2020. It's a big story here in San Francisco. The San Francisco Chronicle has talked about it again today. And this guy who is accused runs a business here in town. He's a well-respected guy. I used to go to some of his forums, or fora, I should say. He hosted all these politicians at his business, and now people who've endorsed him have stepped back from him. You know, and so so this man who is accusing him had been really ticked off at the local Democratic Party here because he put in a complaint nearly 5 months ago and they did not address it until now. So, but that's a big story out here. And so that can affect the local race. That's a local race here in town. And that's a big story here off the back of Graham Platinum and whatnot. So, local politics and knowing about local news is so important as well. And ask the people you are going to talk to, do they listen to local news at all? Because a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. Adam says exactly. Democrats still haven't learned how to properly drive the message in a manner that resonates with voters. As a result, they are perceived as weak and cannot gain momentum. They have to change right quick, or we are in utter peril, writes Adam. I think that it's very important, Adam, your point. We have to do the work as well. The Democrats are focused on things that I don't think they should be focused on. I think there's lots of things they need to be focused on that they're not, and things they are focused on that they shouldn't be focused on. Look, Jamie Harrison, the former DNC chair of all people, the last few days put out something about the need for Democrats to focus to train a really big part of their focus on black voters, and I agree with him for once. Black voters are the backbone of the Democratic Party, and black women voters particularly, but black men as well. And the Democratic Party, the white controlled Democratic Party, has to really come to Jesus here. Forgive my analogy. They have to have a come to Jesus moment, figure of speech. They have to start reckoning with the fact that black voters are their base. And and I'm going to use some profanity here, early on Saturday morning out here, but probably late for you on the East Coast. It's nearly midday there. If the white establishment that controls the Democratic Party continues to fuck around with black voters and take us for granted, they're going to be in for a rude awakening. They really are. And Democrats have got to stop messing around. And Jamie Harrison, of all people, warned about this recently on his Substack. And I agree with him for once. Stop neglecting Democratic Party. If you're listening, stop neglecting black voters and stop taking us for granted. Don't play us cheap. At least one person who understands the value of taking us seriously is Doug Jones, who's running for governor in Arizona. And when Doug Jones was running for Senate, U.S. Senate in Alabama, not Arizona. Sorry, Doug Jones. And when Doug Jones ran for U.S. Senate in Alabama, he went where? To black people. He spent a lot of his campaign focusing on black people, on black women, black men, doing ads all over the place in black neighborhoods, visiting black people, talking to them, listening to them. We need to do the same. Like I said, we have to talk and listen to the people who didn't vote and people we know, right? And tell them that these elections, we have to vote in every one of them. Doug Jones went to black people. And if it wasn't for him doing that and listening to black people and listening to their agenda and what black people wanted and what was important to us, Doug Jones would not have had that time he had in the Senate. He got over the line against Roy Moore. Remember Roy Moore, the accused alleged pedophile that everybody was backing? Well, everybody in the Republican Party was backing, and a few people just were quiet. But this is really, really important, folks. If it wasn't for Doug Jones engaging black folk, he would not have been in the Senate. You would have had an alleged pedophile in the Senate, and he probably still would be there. So the Democrats have to pay attention. Omar, but talking about the Epstein files, Trump, this is Vicky now, is one way to engage others. One has to start where a person is to encourage them to vote. I agree, Vicky, but here's what I would say to you. I agree with you. You have to start somewhere. But one of the things that we don't do very well in this country is nuance. What we do very well in this country is entertainment and celebritydom and talking about topics that are, forgive me because it's not true of the Epstein files, but what I'm saying is talking about subjects that are popular or quote unquote sexy, which of course the Epstein files is not about sex, but I'm just saying things that galvanize people, things that are clickbait to some people, not to me, to some people. And I think a dose of castor oil is what is needed. And you just sometimes have to just get into a place. And I get you have to meet where people are. I agree with that. But the content of what you say to those people where they are is very important. And I just think you just have to strip it down to its bare bones. And then I think you can also then talk about those other things that you mentioned, Vicky, about Epstein and all the rest of it later. But I think foundationally, the way that now listen, there's more than one way to talk to a prospective voter or someone who didn't vote. But from my approach to this, Vicky, is that foundationally you have to enter by asking these people who did not vote or who are up in the air about voting what they care about, because you have to personalize it to them. Because, yeah, for some people, if you talk about the Epstein files to them, it might resonate with them. It might galvanize them, especially if they're a survivor. It may well galvanize them. Or even if they're not a survivor, it may galvanize them. I agree. But I think the most important thing, Vicky, and everyone else watching, that I think is instructional and foundational, is to actually first ask them, what is it you care about? And then have the conversation with them on their level based on their needs. Because let me tell you, folks, and Vicky, I may be wrong about this, I will guarantee you, if you ask somebody down the street from you right now, what are the three things you care about the most in life? I will guarantee you that 95% of them will not say the Epstein files. I mean, I'm being a little arrogant, not arrogant, but I'm being presumptuous here. But I will hedge a bet, and I'm not really a betting man, that if you ask three people down the street where you live, what are the three issues that you really care about in life? I will pretty much guarantee you nobody's going to say the Epstein files. And if you poll people and say to them, what, are these four things, which is the most important? I don't think most people, and it's not to diminish survivors. That does not diminish a survivor or diminish the the importance of those files as it pertains to these keeping, holding people in power to account. And I get it, the development this week with the guy in France or wherever who was found dead. I understand that. I think for me, a lot of this stuff, and it's not a soap opera to the survivors, but I think a lot of this stuff is a soap opera to people out in the world, some people out in the world. And this is what I said earlier. We love this celebrification and entertainment factor. And it's a sad thing about us in this country, many of us, that's the only way that we can get galvanized into voting. For example, all the celebrities that Vice President Harris's campaign, and a lot of that was beyond her control, who were invited to talk on these tours that Harris did, and you know, and Adam talked about this earlier about, some of these celebrities did more harm than good. And he cited George Clooney and Michael Moore. And I think, same thing here with some of these people on the Harris tour. Oh, we'll have this celebrity and that celebrity and the other celebrity. It's like, dude, if you have to seduce Americans by sticking a celebrity in front of their face in order to vote, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. And Vicky, that's the challenge here, you see, for me. The challenge for me and the challenge I think for the country is we have to stop glamorizing everything. And we have to be sometimes downright unromantic about voting and about governmental processes and about engaging with elected officials on the local level or above. And I think we've got to break out of this romanticism with celebrities. I really do. I think that's the big problem. And I understand what you're saying, Vicky, about speaking to people where they are. But I really think you have to personalize what that is. It's like, goes back to what I said to you and to Adam earlier about having a conversational technique. Adam talked about, sometimes you have to scare folks straight. Yeah, some people need that. But again, you can't use that with everybody. And you cannot say, well, let me talk about the Epstein files or Trump to engage people, because I think that look, I mean, we can agree to disagree, and it's okay. Nobody's wrong in what they're saying here. You're not wrong. I'm not wrong. No one's wrong, right? It's our view on this. I'm simply saying that if you're talking to someone, whether you know them or not, and ask them, did you vote last time? And if you didn't, why not? Or just asking them about what issues do you really care about? And you have to relate to them personally. And if they volunteer Epstein files, then you talk about it. And even if they don't volunteer Epstein files, maybe later on in the conversation, maybe you bring that up as an example of something. But I would not make the Epstein files the massive thing about in my voting discussion unless somebody really prompts that or says that's one of their issues. That's just me. Um, and look, again, um, whether one is a survivor or not may depend upon whether they choose to have that discussion or not. That may play into it too for them. But again, um, our country is so wrapped up in celebritydom. And I really hope that the Democrats, whoever ends up being the nominee next time around, excuse me, I really hope that they get away from all this celebrification. I don't like it. It's not worked. You know, people are not. If somebody who is a celebrity endorses someone, people do not get them. The needle does not move because, say, I don't even want to mention the name, but you get it. Any number of celebrities, it's really a PR thing for them. It's not for the voter. It's kind of like polls. When people put out polls for candidates, those polls are not for the voter. That's for the candidate's campaign. These polls don't really influence people, right? If there's a poll for your candidate that you want in 2028 or the people you want to vote for in 2026, right? That poll is not going to move the needle really for the average person. That poll and those polls are for the campaign of whichever candidate and their internal metrics. It's not for you and me. That's why I'm really one of these people who would say, screw the polls, don't pay any attention to them, just get out there and do your voting. These are samples. You don't know who's commissioning these bloody things, what they're exactly asked. You don't know any of that, right? And the margin of error and all this other nonsense. So we need to focus on the power. Again, this goes back to what I said. We need to focus on the power we have. Voting does empower people. Yes, absolutely. We need to focus on us. The hot take society. Yep. Vicky echoed what I mentioned earlier. Yeah, this hot take society is terrible. This is part of the thing, Vicky, and I promise I'm going to get to mental health because that's really going to be what I want to focus on. But this hot take society, Vicky, is something that has obliterated literacy in this country. I really think that the ability for you and me to get on our phone and do what I'm doing, although what I'm doing I would not call a hot take, but you may disagree. Whoever's watching this, you may disagree. I don't think what this is a hot take, what I'm doing. But this idea that we're going to get on Instagram or on Substack or just type something out and this instant reaction, rather than reading something, rather than absorbing, rather than contemplating, reflecting, and being introspective, it's a really bad thing. And it damages reading literacy because we don't read, many of us, as I've said earlier. This hot take society is what media is now. And the reason why you have this in the corporate media is because of, I think, a couple of things. One, the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which Bill Clinton signed into law, or he did sign it into law, but that was done as a result of Newt Gingrich and the contract on America, as people call it, not the contract with America, the contract on America. And that was part of a deal that Newt Gingrich got Bill Clinton to get into. It's like, we won't buckle on this unless you sign this Telecommunications Act into law, which deregulated the media and allowed for now, what, three companies to own 96% of the media in this country? Thank God that Paramount merger with Warner Brothers has been put on ice for at least, what, another year? June of next year, another year. I mean, I think that's really important, but that's a whole nother story that I don't want to get into now. There's a lot of things I don't want to get into now, but I could, but I won't, because I want to be message disciplined, time disciplined too. Thank you for your time. Please become a paid subscriber if you can. Be greatly appreciated. I'm going to start giving away again in August, books and all that. I'll be resuming the giveaways for paid subscribers only. You have a chance to win a number of prizes, books. I'm giving away a book next month called Rethinking Sex and a Provocation. That's the subtitle of it, by Christine Ember. By the way, Christine Ember is part of a podcast episode called The Interview, which is put out by the New York Times, and it's the most recent episode. She and two other women are interviewing, are talking about Gen Zers who don't have sex and how Gen Z doesn't have sex anymore. That's just an aside. I don't want to start talking about that now. But I'm giving away a book by Christine Ember next month for paid subscribers only at random. One name we picked out at random, and it's called Rethinking Sex, a Provocation. And I'll be doing a Substack Live about consent, about men and women, our relationships, how we relate to each other, all kinds of things. You will not want to miss that in the next week or two. All right. Let me read out other comments before I get to mental health. Evelis Reyes has said hello. Hello, Evelis. Nice to see you. Heather Cox Richardson is encouraging all to vote and how to get involved. That's good news. I have not checked in on Heather Cox Richardson for quite some time, Vicky. So if she's doing that, that's a really good thing. And that's great because she has a massive platform on Substack. See, this is the thing. All of us the people who have massive platforms need to be doing this. And if Heather Cox Richardson is doing that, that's fantastic, Vicky. And people who have, where she's got millions of subscribers, that's a gold mine. And anybody else, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, that whatever. Listen, I don't have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but I do talk about the issues that I think that are really important to us and not the entertainment. And that's part of the issue, Vicky, too, is we love to be entertained. There's nothing wrong with entertainment, but I think that we love to be entertained in areas where we really should be getting cold doses of what the cold hard realities are. But we love to have sugar with our sour. Like we always love to have the sweet with the sour, right? We can't just sometimes focus on the cold, harsh realities. We love to just have the syrup dangled on top of it. And it's like sometimes everything isn't syrupy, as people know, right? And we can't always have the sweetener. We've got to have the cold, hard, sour truth, right? What's the cold, hard facts. But that's great, Vicky. If HCR is doing that, that's really important. And so many others do. And by the way, I do want to take a moment to just mention Nolan Wells again. We need to be putting out prayers for his family, and we need to really, in Nolan's name, we need to honor that brother. He was 18, meaning that he was of voting age. He would have been able to vote this year. Maybe he did vote. Maybe he voted in the primary. I don't know. But we should also be honoring him by voting. That's a whole nother thing, too, that I could talk about. I talked about it on the Politicrat podcast yesterday, actually. And we need to stop talking about, again with Nolan as well. We need to get to the bottom of what's happened, right? But we need to stop being titillating about Nolan Wells. Stop being titillating with information that is not factual. We don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know. Let's stop the ghoulishness and let's stop all the speculation around, oh, did he go with this girl? I can do without that. We don't know, right? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But the fact is, he's no longer here and his family need answers. And I think we need to respect the family. Anyway, that's me off my soapbox about the situation around Nolan Wells. Please support his family and their GoFundMe page. Okay, Nolan Xavier Wells. Nolan Xavier Wells. GoFundMe. And please reach out to Christine. She's on Substack. Christine.f as in Frank, N as in North, P as in Paul. That's how you can find her on Instagram if you have that platform on your device. Cheryl Fay has joined us. HCR does educate people and shows folks how to get involved and how to vote. That's great, Vicky. I really like that. You know, I really think that's important. You know, we need to have more people doing this, and there are some I know who do it, but it needs to be the order of the day. I mean, listen, frankly, and it's not going to be true of me for every single time I do one of these lives. I'm going to be spending 90% of the time from now and through November the 3rd, I think it is, the midterms, November 3rd, talking about voting and what we need to do. I mean, it's easy to analyze what the problems are, but I believe in the solutions. I believe in providing them. I believe in providing roadmaps. I provided one earlier about how we can talk to people who haven't voted, how we must listen to them and not lecture them, and how we also must ask them what they care about. Because if we begin a conversation by asking them what they care about, then we've sent the message to them that we care about them and that we care about what they care about because we've given up our ability to do this and we've actually invested in our ability to do this, which is really something that the hot take society, Vicky, does not allow for. The hot take society is all about that and not enough about this or this. Really eviscerates everything anyway. That's a whole nother thing. So I want to get now to a lot of other things here with mental health now. But Angie Decadence has said the DNC and the DCCC, etc. machinery were woefully inadequate in grassroots investments to get out the vote in 2024. They spent lots of capital palling around with Liz Cheney and trying to convert Republicans and to Democrats. And here we are, Kenyon Martin and company are still doing the same thing today. Do you mean Ken Martin? Yeah, Ken Martin. You said Kenyon, but I know what you're saying. Ken Martin and company. Yeah, they are. They are. And the thing is, Angie, and thanks for writing this, Angie. Again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. The white power structure of the Democratic Party has got to start reckoning with us as black voters and stop faking the funk and stop doing the bullshit and stop putting all these celebrities on a hiding to nowhere and actually start to invest in black voters because black voters are the moral conscience of this country. Black people are the moral conscience of this country, and black people are the voting base of the Democratic Party. Most white voters do not vote Democratic in this country. And when the fuck, pardon my French, pardonnez-moi français, when the fuck will the white power structure in the Democratic Party come to terms with the fact that black voters are voting overwhelmingly for you? 94% or 92% of black women voted for Vice President Harris last time. 81% of black men did. When is the white power structure of the Democratic Party going to pay attention to us? The thing is, Angie, is that the DNC and the DCCC and these white consultants are raking in millions of moolah. So for them, win or lose, a lot of these people who run campaigns, who have consultant agencies, they're making buku dollars, whether they win or lose. So it's a money-making operation for these folks. It's a fact. It's an absolute fact. They make money. All these people like Robbie Mook, when he ran that campaign he did, I think for Clinton, that was a failure, he made lots of money, you know. He went on to the next thing and made lots of money. All these people who run these campaigns, including running Harris's campaign, some of those Biden folks, I'm not going to mention their names, you know who they are, they made lots of money, these consultants. And so we need to root that kind of shit out of politics. Everyone talks about Citizens United and these big corporations who and all these people spending buku dollars in campaigns and donations and all. I agree. But you know what else also needs to be rooted out? These white consultant firms that make so much friggin' money and then don't invest money in black candidates but invest money in lots of white candidates. But the black candidates don't get the same amount of investment. Come on now. See, this is the kind of stuff that you're not going to hear on a lot of other Substacks. Roland Martin talks about this, though. And you need to be watching, he's not on Substack, but Roland Martin, who's on pretty much every other social media platform except this one, as far as I know, has a great show Monday through Friday. It's called Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's on the Black Star Network, which is an app you can download, or you can go to blackstarnetwork.com, or you can go to youtube.com/ Roland S as in Sam Martin. His show, Roland Martin Unfiltered, is on Mondays through Fridays, 6 p.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm telling you, you will get news on there that you won't get anywhere else. Anywhere else. Very important. But I agree, Angie. Ken Martin has been a disaster as far as I'm concerned. He didn't want to put out the autopsy. Harris basically was leading the charge, telling donors, look, you've got to get this guy to do this. And and telling him basically you have to get people, you have to release this report and he finally released it. And you saw how woefully inadequate the report was. Ken Martin can't get out of his own way. The DNC can't, and DCCC. These are all money makers. Moneymakers and heartbreakers. People have grease in their palms. And the old style Democratic Party didn't invest in this stuff until the late 1980s, when the Republicans started to do the same thing. So now you've got all this money in here, Citizens United, all this other stuff, and it's certainly true for these white consultant firms. These people make millions of dollars, folks. Roland Martin did a whole long thing on this. I need to go and get that video and pass it to you. Um, and I've seen this. These folks make lots of, and everybody in DC knows this stuff. So that is a real issue. Thank you, Angie, for mentioning it. Um, we really are blowing away opportunities here to win these things. And there's too many people in the DNC and the DCCC who are much more invested in holding on to power within the party than they are winning elections. Much more invested in making money than they are in winning elections. Much more invested in scaremongering you about Zohran Mamdani and the DSA than they are winning elections. The question for the DNC and the DCCC is, what the fuck is your priority? Is it winning elections and serving the people? Or is it bullshitting around and making money and keeping power in your party and not letting those people over there, those scary ass DSA people that you're so afraid of, get power and traction in the country and in your party? Because I tell you, there is no Republican Party anymore. And they have not put up a fight against the people who now run it. But the people who are now trying to make a difference all over the country with all the election results, the DSA folks, are now being looked at as worse than Trump? Really? Give me a break. What the fuck are your priorities, DNC and Ken Martin? That's another thing I'll say. Everything starts locally, Omar. That is vital, writes Vicky. Yes, Steve Garnas, thank you. Bring back civics, writes Vicky. Thank you for that, Vicky. Um, uh, yeah, Angie, Ken Martin is useless, writes Vicky. Yeah, yeah. He's a joke. Yeah, screw Clarence Thomas. Yeah, writes Vicky. Teresa J has joined us. Um, who sues the USPS? Yeah, I know. Nobody does. But Clarence Thomas literally said that. Well, I guess maybe Donald Trump does. But yeah, Clarence Thomas wrote that. I know you wrote this comment a little while ago, but literally Clarence Thomas wrote that decision this year. That's like the first decision I've seen him write in a long time. I've read him write a lot in a long time, Vicky. But that decision was February. I think it might have been February 28th of this year. It was February 26th or something. Literally in 2026. This is a very important decision that lots of people missed or just did not talk about. I'm going to talk about that decision in more detail. I talked about it in detail on the Politicrat a few months ago, and I'm going to do it again because people need to know this. Um, there's a lot of stuff people need to really need to know. Neurodivergent Hodgepodge has joined us. Hello, nice to see you here. I am very polite to my elected officials at all levels. And we talked about this earlier, and I know you read about this earlier, Vicky. Thank you. Um, I live in a deep red county, writes Adam. Anytime I get mail from ACLU, FSTV, or SPLC, or Democrats or democratically aligned organizations, writes Adam, my mailman loudly slams my mail into my mailbox. LOL. Wow. Well, that's just really, isn't that really, boy, what a shallow, insecure person that is, Adam. Boy, that mailman is a really insecure person and really bitter and hard-hearted. I mean, that's just really pathetic and so thin-skinned that he can't stand the fact that the person whom he's delivering mail to may have a political affiliation or an opinion different from his. And so I've got to slam a mailbox. Wow. Yeah, there's people like this in the world, Adam. I'm sorry that that happens to you. I think that's just really pathetic. It shows you what you're dealing with in this country. And the Democrats have got to decide if they care about all their voters or only a few of their voters. What's more important to the Democratic Party, trying to convert Republicans who are never going to vote for Democrats, or actually tender to their actual base, the black voter, and actually freaking will reach out to that voter the way that Doug Jones has, the way that the 50-state strategy that Howard Dean did. But, you know, he screamed out something and the media ran that all day long and then he was gone. I was like, wow, you know, do you want to win or do you want to just hold power in the party? Do you want to acknowledge and respect and actually pay attention to and cater to and listen to black voters? Or do you want to just keep losing elections while you stay in power and the donor class that you have stays in power? Because this is all about the donor class. This is in the Democratic Party, this is all about power and the donor class, the white donor class, maintaining power and control with their money. This is what it's about, folks. No one likes to talk about that, but that is the truth. The fucking donor class is the big ass elephant in that room. And the white consultant class and the white advisor class, those people are making buku dollars. And if you don't believe me, you can go look all this stuff up. These folks make money. They don't do this for their health. And at what cost? Clear Root has joined us. Judith Dolan, hello to you. Thank you very, very much indeed. Jen S. Hello, Jen S. Great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining, Jen S. Thank you very much. You're right, Omar. It's on us to do the work, writes Adam. Also, Joe Madison called Harrison weak not long before he passed in so many words. Yeah, Joe Madison, God rest his soul, the Black Eagle. And I really wish he was around with us, but he is no longer with us. I remember that. He called Jamie Harrison, who was DNC chair a few years ago, at that time weak, which he was. And so to see that Jamie Harrison now no longer the DNC chair, is writing and sounding the alarm about, hey, Democrats, you need to be engaging black voters, is a real thing. Now, by the way, in case you didn't know, yesterday, the Democratic Party officially selected South Carolina as the first place that's going to have its primaries in 2028. Keep that in mind. It's a very important bit of news. In case you didn't know, it's from yesterday. And South Carolina has got a 35 to 36% black population in it. Most black people in this country live in the South. And one of the things I had been talking about and other people have been talking about is the need to have the first primary in South Carolina and not in bloody Iowa and not in bloody New Hampshire, where it's mostly white, almost completely vanilla white in both of those states, right? And the Democratic Party, if it wants to really be about something, has to start doing what they've done now with South Carolina being first. That's very important. And now they have to start going out to black voters, invest in black voters, invest in getting black voters. James Tallarico is not going to do jack in Texas if he does. Listen, I'm not in Texas. I'm not here to opine on Texas, right? Just like I don't want people who aren't in California to be making statements about California that they've got no idea about because they don't live here and they can't vote here. I can't vote in Texas. Of course, I want Tallarico to win, okay? But what I'm saying is James Tallarico, and he says he's doing this. I've listened to a couple of his town halls this week. He says he's doing this and he needs to keep doing it. James Tallarico doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell if he does not invest in the black community and black voters in the state of Texas. Black people, there are more black people in Texas than there are in any other state in this country. Fact. Absolute fact. There, again, let me repeat this. There are more black people in the state of Texas than there are black people in any other state in the country. True story. It's an absolute fact. James Talarico and all these other candidates and all these other offices have got to come to black people if they have any chance of pulling it off in Texas for the Senate race or any other race that is statewide, right? Gina Hinojosa, or whatever her name is, in Texas, who's running for governor of Texas, I think, against Abbott. Gina has got to do the same thing. If she has any chance of winning in Texas and becoming the governor and unseating Greg Abbott, she needs to come to black voters. And you've got to build these coalitions. That's how you win these elections, folks. You have to have a coalition of voters, black, white. You have to have Latino. You have to have Asian. You have to have all manner of voters. Obama won like that. He did. Joe Biden won like that. Coalitions of voters. If you refuse, DNC, to court black voters and all these candidates, especially these white candidates, if you have them out there and they're not coming to black towns and black counties, you are going to lose. And you're wasting a lot of money throwing it down the drain on a losing campaign. And that's why when Harris runs in 2028, which I think she's going to definitely do, that campaign is going to be run differently. It's not going to be Biden people, it's going to be her people. And I bet you they do spend more time in black areas in North Carolina, for example. Ralph Carabetta joins us. Vicky, thank you for your services yeah, as a on the Human Services Committee in your county there in North Carolina, and you chaired that committee for years. That's fantastic. Well done, Vicky. Yet I know you do know that everything must be personalized, but I just think it's really important. I wanted to reiterate that again from earlier, and I know you wrote these comments before. This is just really important that we do emphasize this, because I only said this because of what you said about Epstein and the Trump and all that. But personalizing this stuff is really important, and I've seen people actually not do that. They've talked in these big terms about things that are very external to many of the voters they're talking to, and you have to develop that personal connection by talking to people about what they care about and ask them what that is. Some people may not want to talk to you about that, but it's really important. Thank you, Vicky. Yep, the streets they drive on, mortgages, rent, healthcare. Yep, all those things, Vicky, are very, very important. And Vicky, I'm not lecturing to you. I'm just talking to you. I was talking to you earlier about what you said about Trump and Epstein, and I was just responding to that. And all I was saying was, quite frankly, that you need to have a connection with people because everyone is not going to resonate. Epstein files is not going to resonate with everyone. In fact, I'd say most people. That's just the way it is. Susan Huffland, thank you for joining us. Um, listen, Vicky, I'm not. I don't know if you think I'm picking a fight here with you at all. I am just having a conversation with you and everyone else. And the only reason I spoke about what I spoke about is because your comment, which I read out everybody's comments pretty much on here, and I respond to them and I explain and I give my view. That's all this is. Leilani, hello to you. Kat, hello to you. Mameli, great to see you. Mameli, great to see you here. Thank you for being here. Dr. Coleman, thank you. I'm going to now talk about the. Um, thank you, Teresa, for saying this. Teresa J. writes, listen to their answers. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So important, listening. Teresa J., I agree with you 110%. Listening is so key. We don't do enough of that in this society, in this country. We don't. It's all this bumping our gums. Ba 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 ba. Hot take, hot take. The loudest person in the room, the first person in the room, the person with the most titillating details in the room about photos of graphic photos that you've got, but you can't show them to us. I went off on that on my podcast yesterday on the Politicrat, which is posted on Substack right here. Friday's episode. I went off on that. All this hot taking and all this sensationalism and this salaciousness and this bullshit that really, Teresa, does not move the needle for us. It's all about edge. It's all about this in entertaining us rather than informing us. Entertainment's good, but I'm sorry, we need to really get to be cold and sober sometimes. And a lot of us, we love to be entertained and seduced with all this other stuff that really in the main does not really matter. So listening to answers is very important, Teresa. I'm with you 110%. People are uninformed, and Adam writes. Yeah, there's a lot of people. We need to start educating folks. Suzanne has joined us. Renee has joined us. David Packman put out a similar video on Democratic consultants that should never be allowed anywhere near an election. Yeah, I bet I would like to see that video. I know of David Packman. He's done some good work in the past. Thank you, Adam, for that. Yeah, that's the thing. The consultant class, Adam, is a real problem, folks. It's a big problem in the Democratic Party. The same people who you see on these networks who are still hanging around talking, you know who they are. I don't even want to mention some of them really need to retire and move on. Okay? Some of them who won elections 30 years ago need to go home. And we don't need to hear them anymore. We need to, I would like to see some black folk in these positions, period. And I would like to see more of a priority in the Democratic Party mandate to give voice to black candidates and spend the same kind of money on them that you do on white candidates. And I want to see this so-called big tent open up some more and stop scaremongering people around people like Zohran Mamdani and other folk. It's just ridiculous. Mamdani's getting results in New York. Okay? It's nonsense. Vote, 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 writes Melly. Yes. Melly, yes. Vote, vote, vote. I spent the first hour plus talking about that. I'm going to get, I promise, to mental health next. Clarence Thomas has a staff that writes everything for him. Yeah, I think all these people do in the Supreme Court there, Adam. I think every one of these justices does. I know what you're saying, where you're going with the LOL part of that, but yeah, all of them do. All of these clerks write this stuff for them, or transcribe it, or whatever the hell it is. The donor class, yes, Vicky, they are the donor class indeed. Um, all of these folks need to reach out. Yes, Roy Cooper does too, writes Vicky. He needs to reach out to the black community in North Carolina. I agreed. This goes for all these Democratic candidates. These white Democratic candidates have to start making black voters a priority. I mean, you would have thought, Vicky, and everyone else watching this, that after seeing what you saw with Joe Biden and how black people showed up for him, after seeing what you saw with Vice President Harris and black people and the percentages that black people showed up for her in, I mean, that is the envy of any party to have black voters at 80% or 92% in the case of black women. That's the envy of any party. Would love to have a voting bloc voting like that. White people don't vote in that kind of number for one candidate over another. It's usually a split 54 to 40, whatever, 46, 58 to 42, 56 to 40, 44. Malcolm X talked about this so often back in 1964. The white vote is so evenly divided. It's you, the black person out there voting, paraphrasing. It's you, the black person out there, whose voting bloc swings these elections one way or another. It's always been the case. And yet the Democratic Party chooses to not invest in black voters. Not nearly enough. And that's going to be the death of the party. And I think the party would rather die, quite frankly, than invest in black voters. We've seen this over and over and over again, election after election. Roy Cooper needs to absolutely reach out. I agree, Vicky. I know you're there in North Carolina, but they absolutely need Roy Cooper, all these folks in Arizona. Katie, listen, I know, look, I listen. I understand that. Okay, there's black populations may not be as high in some of these states, but that's not the point, right? I'm not saying anybody in here has said that. I'm saying this, and people. I don't care where you are. I don't care if there's three black people in the state of Maine. Troy Jackson's going to have to reach out to them too. I really, when Troy, all these white progressives, you have to do your work too. All of you have to really understand that black voters carry a lot of currency in this country and they're the backbone of the party. And you need to go to them for and listen to what they have to say, like any other group, like you do any other group of people. And stop chasing after these freaking Republicans, these white Republicans in the suburbs who ain't voting for you. Stop doing that garbage because white women and white men in the suburbs, most of them keep voting for Republicans. Okay? Stop seducing us with all these people who, oh, I'm voting for Harris because, I used to be a neocon and I used to be there. Didn't move the needle, did it? Didn't do shite. Didn't do shit in 2024. You spent all this time with Liz Cheney. What did that do? Why? Say why. Why? Why? What was that about? Did it bring any Republicans over, really, in any number? No, not really. And the Democrats keep doing this all the time. It's immensely frustrating. There's no I in team. I agree with you, Teresa J. Hi, Omar. Like this platform. Thank you, Melly. And if you do like it, please become a subscriber, either free or paid. Paid subscribers get free gifts given to them at random. I draw a random paid subscriber out of a hat, and they win books. They can win vinyl records, CDs, movies, all kinds of things. So please become a paid subscriber if you can. If you can't, become a free subscriber, and that's also appreciated. Yeah, we'll say it on your behalf, writes Angie. James Carville and the like need to zip it. Yeah, and I mentioned his name now, but it's true. These are the kinds of people who are dead weights, who are frankly racist, and who won an election many years ago, but think they now have the gravitas to talk about every election since then, as if the times are the same. You cannot win a 2026 election the same way you won a 1992 or 1996 election. You can't. Times have changed, demographics have changed, technology has changed, and ad campaigns have changed, and also the structure of races have changed. You cannot just put a ton of money on ads, on the radio, on TV. You have to get out in the trenches and reach people where they are, as people say here in this chat. Reach someone where they are. Yeah, that's a really true thing. And you can't just go and put an ad buy on social media or on a social media platform or on the radio. You can't do, or on television. Nobody watches television anymore. I mean, certain age groups do, who tend to be a bit older, obviously, they do, because they're more sedentary. They tend to be more at home. But there's a lot of people who are of different age groups who do not. They're watching on their phone, and even then, they're not watching a lot of TV. They're watching it later. You've got to reach people through other means. Trump understood this in 2024. How the fuck can the Democrats not understand that? Trump went to every podcaster he could. How come the Democrats didn't do that? And many of these Democratic candidates had podcasts in 2024, but you somehow didn't utilize that same mechanism often enough. I know Harris did a few, but you didn't use that mechanism enough. It's unbelievable to me. But I think it's very deliberate. I'm not even being conspiratorial. Times have changed, technology has changed, meet and greet. Yeah. Whatever happened to that? Melly, you're correct. I agree with you. Whatever happened to that? You can't just do Zoom calls all the time with people. You have to go where they are. I get it. Maybe you can do some Zoom calls for people who are not physically able to get to somewhere. That is useful and it has its place. Yes, 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 all day long. In addition to that, you've got to physically bring your ass out to the Black communities in this country. You have to. You have to do that with all these groups, but particularly Black people. You cannot run black and add in a black campaign or just add, run an ad on a black radio station a week before the election. That's what the Democrats used to do. We have to talk, talk, and listen to people, writes Melly. Yes, agreed. Melly, thank you. I'm going to now talk about mental health. And I know I said I would talk about it a while ago, but we had a great interaction here around voting, about the Democrats, and about what strategies we need to employ for people who haven't voted lately. Please, if you did not get to watch any of that, watch this back from the beginning. There's a great website that I've also reminded people about. It's called iwillvote.com. I really am going to type that up in the chat one more time. So please, it's a great resource. It's actually ironically paid for, the website says at the bottom of the page, paid for by the DNC. But yeah, they are really good. Iwillvote.com. And a lot of great resources there for those of you who um, you know, are interested in that. Now, mental health, folks, you don't have to volunteer this to me if you don't want to, because I'm not asking you to. But how would you can just think about this and not, you don't have to type it into the chat. How do you describe your, thank you, Melly. How would you describe your mental health? If someone from outer space came down and from whichever planet it was and asked you, how do you describe your mental health? And asked you to give a number from 1 to 10, 1 being really bad and 10 being fantastic. Do you know what number you'd put? And you don't have to put a number in the chat. Would you know what number to tell them? Would you tell them what number? Do you know what number? Well, put it this way, the reason I start like that, and also the other thing is when you talk to friends or your spouse or your partner, your significant other or your close friend, do you ever talk to them about your mental health? Do you ever tell them things like, well, my mental health is at this number today, or I feel a little bit this today or that today, or I'm feeling in good spirits. If you don't have those kinds of conversations with people that you really trust, I think you should, number one. If you don't have those conversations, maybe you have them with a mental health professional, or anything like that. But I really think that mental health is tremendously important. It ties to everything. Your sleep, whether you get enough of it or not, really affects your mental health, believe it or not, as well as your physical health. The stress environment affects your mental health. The political climate does. How you're doing in your life does. Any life challenges or health challenges do. Whether you live alone or live with people, can it potentially affect your mental health? So the reason why I introduce this in this manner, fellow Substacker, is to get you to orient yourself, first of all, as to how you think about mental health. Get you to, without giving me what you think your mental health is, I'll read out your comments with your permission, obviously. If you put them here, I'm going to read them out. But I want you to, first of all, orient yourself to identifying whether you think about mental health or whether you talk about it and how you view it. Now, Vicky has written, whatever number for my mental health, it depends on the day. I talk about my mental health all the time. Vicky, that's really good. Adam writes, I don't care. My mental health is probably a 3 or a 4. Not proud of that, but I have no issue, writes Adam, being ostracized so that someone next to me does not. Thank goodness for my therapist, writes Vicky, who also adds mental health is health. It certainly is. You have my permission. I'm not ashamed, writes Adam. Well, no, I think, Adam, that's the thing. It's great that you're not, because lots of people are. It's a shame that people are. I'm not trying to be naive or foolish, but there are people who don't like to talk about mental health. It's a subject for some people that remains taboo. I don't think it's as taboo in American society as it had been. I think over the last 20 years it's changed. I think certainly, excuse me, for spitting. I think over the last 6 years, it's changed, especially with COVID. I think a lot of people were very forthcoming about their mental health during that period of time for obvious reasons. Look, mental health is health, as Vicky writes. But the reason why I also am talking about mental health and getting people to think about it and just getting outside of the box here on that is because there are some ways, and I've done this before on this Substack Live, for you to really accentuate your mental health, things that you can do that don't cost any real money or anything like that, um, that will improve your mental health to the extent that you would like it to be improved. And one of the things for me, um, folks, and Vicky and Adam are talking about this, is that we must talk about our mental health. I definitely agree and have no shame around it. We've got to break those cycles and those taboos, first of all. And the stigma of judgment is what I think obviously gets people to be in those very vulnerable places, not wanting to talk about it because they don't want to be more vulnerable because they fear the judgment, which is understandable. But there's so many things, and Vicky writes this too, to help mental health, coping skills, and all those things. Um, But the thing is that there are things we can do in our everyday lives that cost very little or nothing at all. And I think one of them is A, to get more sleep to the extent that you can do that, because as we get older, sleep is harder to come by. And sometimes our sleep patterns can be very erratic. Sleep to me is one of the number one things you can do, getting more of it to really help your mental health as well as your physical health. So number one for me is not number, but the first thing is sleep, I think, right? Number two is to be able to spend less time on places like Substack. Really? How much time do you spend on Substack? Do you spend more than 50% of your day on Substack? Do you spend more than 40% of your day on Substack? If you do, probably want to think about reducing that for your mental health purposes. When you come off of Substack, do you feel more hopeful or less so or just the same? Do you feel more stressed out or less stressed out? So I know there's many things, as Vicky says, to improve mental health. Absolutely there are, right? I'm going to scratch the surface on just a few of them. And of course, the ones that work for you are the ones that work for you. And then you can put those in if you want. Valencia says, hello, hello, Valencia. Thank you for joining us. Um, the thing is that there are some things that can be done. One of them is certainly spending less time on these platforms watching people like me. Another of them is to spend less time on social media going back and forth with someone. You know, um, that is unnecessary stress. I really think it is. I think another thing you can do is on a positive level is to be a creator. Might be you might write something. You might decide to paint something, do a sketch, look at the sky, look at the clouds, look at the outdoors, and you might do a sketch of it. These are things that are really important, folks. Adam says, okay, I'm tuning you out, Omar. Goodbye. Yeah, exactly. No, really, I include myself in this. Listen, anything I'm saying is not an exclusion of myself. I am saying, listen, look, I am not afraid to be introspective at all. And I know that you're joking, Adam, but I am really seriously not afraid. I do that all the time. There's things I need to improve on, a lot of things I need to improve on. I've got to keep working on them, you know? Very important. And at least I think I have a bit of self awareness to know that things I got to work on. I do. No question about it. I am not the finished article. It will shock you to know that. But we can do small things every day to improve our mental health, right? We can create things, we can draw things, we can dance. And you don't have to be the world's greatest dancer. You don't have to be the song from Donna Summer. I wonder why. I don't know if that was Donna Summer or someone else. I wonder why. He's the greatest dancer. I don't know if I think that was Donna Summer, right? It might have, or Chic. I don't remember who sang that. It might have been Donna Summer. I think it was. Joy. Dance is connected to joy. And having a dance move or two is good. It doesn't have to be. You have to be the greatest dancer in the world. You just have to let loose. I don't know if you saw the movie The Breakfast Club from 1985. That came out, my God, that came out more than 40 years ago. Jesus crikey. But The Breakfast Club is, excuse me, I keep spitting. The Breakfast Club is one example. Oh my God, that scene in there, I'm not really giving anything away, where you see people dancing or you see this Emilio Estevez doing this robot move and Molly Ringwald doing her thing and Ali Sheedy and John um, all of these guys, Judd Nelson, excuse me, and Anthony Michael Hall. Oh my God, the Breakfast Club, exactly. People know the Breakfast Club in here. Oh my God, so I'm shocked. No, I'm not shocked. Some people I'm not shocked. It is a great movie. Yeah, I wrote about the Breakfast Club. Well, I mentioned it in a story I did on Substack a week or two ago. It is. It's a wonderful. It's a great movie, right, Vicky? Yeah, Adam agrees. I was like Judd Nelson's character as a kid. Adam. Oh, were you now? Melly loved it too, and I am old, writes Vicky. Oh no, yeah, come on now. You're only as old as you feel, Vicky. But I hear what you're saying. I understand. Listen, I'm one of the old birds too. Old hawks, I should say. God, I'm moving using another recent movie reference. Um, the Invite, if you haven't seen it. Yeah, you have to dance, joy. I don't care if you can't move more than 2 paces. Move your body. Movement is so important for your mental health. Everybody loves the Breakfast Club in here. That's great. Movement is so important for your mental health, right? Dance, movement, right? Stretching, yoga poses, movement, joy, dance, music. It's really important for your mental health. Movement is so critical, folks. If you're someone who is unable to walk, you may have a disability, you may have some kind of some kind of health situation, so you or a disability, so you're unable to actually walk. If you're able to move any part of your body, that is a triumph. Some people can't because you have people who are paralyzed, right? You have people who aren't able to do that. But even if you have some kind of disability, if you have a disability and you're still able to move another part of your body, do it. Do it. If you're able bodied, take advantage of dance. Movement is vital, and Vicky just talked about that. Just move in any way at all. I agree, Vicky. You have to be able to, you know what? Movement is so important, and you have to be able to do it because it really affects your neurons and your brain, endorphins. It affects circulation to your heart, by the way, blood pumping everywhere. It's so critical. So critical. And whether you're dancing, whether you're just kind of moving your body and doing stretches, it's so important to do. That really has a profound effect on your mental health. It really does. And it doesn't mean, and it doesn't, walking does, running, if you run, now running, and I run a lot, but I've stopped running as much as I used to because, of course, as you get older, your knees take a pounding, and running can really hurt your knees. You can really put a lot of stress on your knees. And even if you have great shoes that are shock absorbent, you still have all this pressure on your knees. And so walking is a really good exercise to do without all of the pounding on the pavement. And of course, walking up and down stairs, you've got to be careful with going downstairs because you can put a lot of pressure on your knees, but walking is very important. Swimming is important for your mental health. All these things are great exercises. They're not only great cardiovascular exercises, but they're great for your mental health. Movement is fantastic. It's one of the great things. The body bears the burden. Somatic therapy, writes Vicky. Yeah, this is really important. Movement is great. Creativity is really important. You know what else is good for mental health, right? Decluttering your home. If you can accomplish something, right? One thing to do is to declutter your home. If you see piles of things in your home and you notice that that pile's been sitting there and now it's been 3 weeks and you're going, oh my God, that pile is still there. And you keep walking past it, there's a little nugget in your mind and you say, okay, I've got to get rid of that. But then 3 weeks later, it's still there. I guarantee you, if you finally attend to that thing in the corner that you're looking at, this pile of stuff that you've not looked at in weeks, if you deal with that by either throwing it out or giving it away or trashing it or looking through it and throwing it out, it's going to have a tremendously positive effect on your mental health. A cluttered house is a reflection of a cluttered mind. And so when you declutter and when you open your space, whatever that is in your home, it also opens the spaces in your mind that have been clogged up with worry, clogged up with, I've got to get rid of this thing over here or over there, clogged up with all this stuff. It helps you to unclutter your mind. So it also gives you a sense of accomplishment when you finish that task, which also releases all these endorphins and reward and pleasure systems and pleasure zones to your brain. And so it really opens up your mind and it leaves you feeling really good. These chemicals that really help your mental health enhance it. So movement is important. Uncluttering and decluttering is important. I do this quite frequently. You know, if there's stuff that I'm not looking at, if there's a newspaper or something that I've finished with, I get rid of it. There are people who are hoarders. I'm not making any comments about them. Whether it maybe it's perhaps you, maybe you're a hoarder, maybe you're someone who has tons of stuff. The challenge for you, though, if you care to do something about that kind of hoarding, which some people have really lots of levels of hoarding that get put on reality TV shows, that it's just incredible how their houses have not completely toppled or burnt because of all the stuff they have stacked up in their home. But if you can decide, hey, look, you know what, I'm going to get rid of this, you just have to do it. Decluttering is very important, and having more space and more open space in your home helps your mind. Having light come in helps your mind. Very important. Music, very, very important for you too. Angie writes, lots of us gathered here are seasoned folks who can relate to Donna Summer and Mick Jagger music. Yes, LOL. Angie, Angie. Angie Decadence, hello, and thank you for that. Yeah, this is what happens, folks. Um, Omar, you cannot see the bookshelves, writes Vicky behind me, full of all my artwork and books. Fantastic. I have one small room that is cluttered. The rest of my condo is open. Fantastic, Vicky. And this is I mean, again, and look, I'm not making obviously, I'm not making value judgments about anyone. I'm not saying that people in here are saying that about what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that clutter does help. Reducing clutter really does help with mental health. It really does. And accomplishing a task does as well. It's not my fault, writes Adam. The maid quit. Oh dear. So you haven't been paying the maid, Adam. It's like a line from the film Eyes Wide Shut when there's a scene in there, Tom Cruise and and I forget her name, Vanessa Shaw, and Vanessa Shaw's character says when Tom Cruise goes into her apartment and he sees, oh my gosh, this is your apartment, and he kind of stifles his judgment to a degree, and then she goes, I'm sorry, maid's day off. I love seasoned folks too, Vicky. So there. And Angie, I didn't even say that because I'm a seasoned folk. Ah, dear. I have someone who helps me clean, only I don't let her into this one room. Out of bounds, beware. Yes, right. Put a sign on there, Vicky. Tell her, beware, do not enter. Or maybe you put a sign on there that says, excuse me, beware of dog. Don't enter. Don't enter this sacred place. I love my stuff. Now look, see that's another thing, Vicky, right? Stuff. People do love this stuff and they're attached to it. So I understand that's to me is a little bit different because that may aid mental health for you or for someone else, right? They're these curios or these things or this stuff that actually gives someone some comfort. All I'm saying is that with there are people who hoard a lot of things and that may affect their mental health. And I think it can affect many people's mental health. And decluttering is really important. And even away from that, just things that are like writing down three things that you want to accomplish during a day. If you accomplish one of them or even two, or two of them or even one of them, that is going to improve the way you feel about that particular thing. It's an accomplishment for you. It's a reward system. It's more of the endorphins and the pleasure systems being rewarded, right, in your brain, right? And it helps your mental health. So that feeling of accomplishment makes you feel better and therefore elevates your mental health. So stuff is different from clutter. That's true. But stuff can become clutter. Vicky. There is a difference there. There is a difference. I get it. I do agree. But sometimes there's a line where stuff can then become clutter. But Vicky, I hear what you're saying. Um, but that's one example. Setting out goals and accomplishing them, even if you accomplish, as I said, just one of them, that makes a big difference for mental health because you feel like you've accomplished something. And that's important. Cross it off your list. That's one less thing you've got to be thinking about. That's one less thing that's swirling around in your head. Writing things down, if you are able to write, is really important. Writing things down, getting them from here onto the page is really, really important. Very, very important because then you see what the goals are in front of you. Rather than keeping things swirling in your head, write them down on a piece of paper or type them into your phone or on your laptop. I recommend paper. I'm one of the old school old folk who recommends writing something down on paper and then crossing it off your list, like a shopping list. I'm one of these people that still shops and actually has a list. I physically write it out on paper with a pen. I do not put it on my phone. I just write it out and then I cross it off with the pen. That's a feeling of accomplishment. That helps my mental health. I think those things are really good. Another thing I'd say as well on mental health is, again, power down your phone um, an hour before you go to bed if you can, right? Because you may be expecting a phone call in the middle of the night. You may have emergencies. Maybe um, you keep your phone on. But certainly, I would say this: if you can't power down your phone, certainly make sure that you don't look at social media after a certain time of day or night, after a certain time of night, because if you stay on that phone and you're looking at scrolling and doom scrolling, you're going to be up all night, and your sleep is not going to be what it's going to be because your neurons get fired up when you're looking at the phone and your brain gets very active. And while you may think that's good for your mental health when you're trying to get sleep, it's really not because you're doom scrolling, you're getting stressed, you're looking at this story and that story, da 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 da. I am a pen and paper person. Lists are great. Yeah, they are. Writing is great. You're a hoarder, Omar. Your book collection has consumed your living space. I've got loads of books here, but let me tell you, you would not believe that my space is actually really very, very open. And I've got lots of books, not just the books you see behind me, Adam. Um, but yeah, as I say, I get rid of stuff, and it's really good to do that, and definitely makes a difference. You should give some of them to us. Yeah. Some of those books to you. Yeah. Like I don't give away books already, Adam. Because I don't give away books at all, do I? I know what you're saying, Adam, but yeah, I mean, I give away books to paid subscribers quite frequently here, as I'm sure you know. So, and I've got lots more of them to give away. So, resuming next month, Adam. So, there we go. I have my phone on silence for the night. Only a few members, writes Vicky. Only a few family members, writes Vicky, are on my emergency numbers that can get through. Yeah, good, good, good. These things are really important because the phone, I would bet that there are at least 5 people watching this right now who look at their phone late at night on social media, or before they go to bed, they scroll through social media, whether it's Substack or YouTube or this or that, that you look at that stuff. And then you wonder perhaps why you are having trouble going to sleep. Because you're looking at this screen or on your laptop and it's emitting all this electromagnetic stuff, all this stuff is coming at your brain, and your brain's trying to process all this stuff. And it's actively trying to chomp down on all the stuff that's coming in front of it. It's like when you eat something just before you go to bed, the digestive system is working throughout the night. And so you can't really sleep because you're sleeping on a full stomach, which is never a good idea. And you have all this issue. And so, same thing with mental health, with looking at a phone like that and scrolling. It's not good for your mental health because you're tensed up, your your neurons are firing away, and then you can't sleep. And then that's not good either. So there we go. We are having fun here with you and others. Yes, that's very good, Vicky, to know that that is true. And I know you are joking around, and I think it's great fun. Laughter and joy are very much components of good mental health, have tremendous effects. Laugh, folks, please. Make jokes, laugh. I mean, have fun, laugh. Jokes, I get it. This may be, this time that we're living in may not be a jokey time, but find some fun and joy in what you do, okay? Focus on the things you do that can really affect other people, or things that you do just personally that make and lift your spirits. Find pleasure and joy in things that you can, whether it is reading a book, whether it's writing, whether it's drawing, whether it's buying something that you really have wanted to buy forever and you put it on and it makes you feel great, or whether it's music, whether it's walking, whether it's being out in nature, whether it's swimming, whether it is whatever it is, you know, find laughter every day. Laughing is so important, writes Melly. And find laughter every day, writes Vicky. And I'm glad you don't eat, Vicky, before bed or doom scroll. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because powering down your device or turning it on silent is very important. And before going to bed, yeah, for goodness sakes, doom scroll, that's the worst thing people could do. And I'm glad you don't do it, Vicky, because it really can be a problem. It really can. I mean, I used to do this a long time ago, not doom scrolling, but having the phone on and looking at it before bed. Not a good thing to do, but I don't do that anymore. I haven't done it for a long time. Laughing is so important, writes Melly. I did read that out. Find laughter every day. Be silly and laugh at yourself. Yes, buy some flowers for yourself. Vicky, I do buy flowers for myself. That's a great thing to do. Flowers are important, and I buy flowers all the time. We really need to do that, you know. You have to do things like that. That's about treating yourself. That's about mental health. Those are very important things. Buying flowers for yourself. I don't care who you are, right? Buying flowers for yourself, whether you're male, female, whether you're someone who's a trans person, someone who, it doesn't matter what your gender is, buy flowers for yourself. And really, it's just so important. Vicky writes this too, to treat yourself. Please don't wait for someone else to do that for you, right? Do it for yourself. That's empowering. That helps you. That really helps your mental health. It also helps you feel better about yourself too, or better about your, I don't know what, better about a lot of things. Flowers are important. There's a healing mechanism to flowers. There's a healing mechanism to nature. There's a healing mechanism to walking through a field with lots of trees and lots of greenery. And there's a healing mechanism to things like the beach, walking by the water, going into the water if you can, swim. You know, there is not a healing mechanism to lettuce. Okay. At least not now. There is not. But eating well, eating healthy helps too, if you can. Having comfort food is a good thing, but too much of a good thing is not a good thing. Unless you disagree with that, but that's understood if you do. Take care of yourself, right, Melly? Yes, taking care of yourself and taking care of yourself in general. Yeah. Rewarding yourself, treating yourself is very important. I think that's fundamentally important. Whatever is healthy to you, whatever it is, that improves your mental health. I don't care what it is, whether it's exercise, whether it's listen to music, whether it's going out, whether it's sex, whether it's intimacy, whether it's laughter, joy, whether it's going to watch a movie someplace, whether it's playing a game of Scrabble. I don't know. That may not be a positive effect on your mental health. It may be playing chess. Um, there's a million things. Buying flowers. These things are really important, folks. So listen, I've just spent best part of more than about half an hour now talking about just a few of the things that can improve your mental health. Creativity, being joyous, not taking yourself so seriously. Now, I sometimes do, but I also laugh at myself and I also can poke fun at myself. But there's a time to be serious and a time to joke around, and you can do both. I do both. Connecting with others is probably the most profound thing, Vicky. Yes, I agree with you. It's the most important for our mental health too. And I do that too. Connecting with each other as human beings is very important. Whether you know someone or whether you don't, whether you connect to someone you're living with or whether you connect to someone externally beyond that, very, very important to do. Connecting with other human beings is a big one. It's a massive one. Really, really important. Even people that you don't know, you walk down the street, say hello to people, connect to people, have conversations, go to a bookstore. That I think is great for my mental health. I sometimes go to bookstores and I don't even intend to buy something, and then I end up with these books that I buy and read, I mean, but bookstores are great places, and we don't have enough of them anymore because people go online for their books. Listen, I'm not saying that people can't buy stuff online. Listen, I've done it myself, but going into an actual brick and mortar bookstore, if you're fortunate enough to have one near you, is a very good thing for your mental health. It really opens up those passageways for discovery and education and having conversations with people. Yeah, Johnny Walker, yeah, I'd stay away from him too. Yeah. Alcohol is not, even though I did have some champagne for the Knicks celebration, the New York, which I still celebrate the Knicks. Speaking of mental health, my gosh, that's the best. I mean, at least for me, I still celebrate the New York Knicks and their championship from last month, and I'm going to continue to do that. And yeah, apart from drinking some champagne, which is also alcohol, yeah, Johnny Walker, no chance. And alcohol for me is not outside of that celebration of the Knicks. No, it's a no-no for me. I am not saying anything about anyone else. I am not going to be here to be the morality police about that. You've got to do what is best for you. But for me, alcohol is a definite no-no. Keep on learning is also good for one's mental health, right, Vicky? Agreed. 100%. And hence the bookstore example I talked about. That opportunity to learn or to be in a library, either one of those things is a really, really good thing for your mental health. Those gateways I was talking about for learning, Vicky, for everyone else watching, that gateway of expansion of your mind and keeping an open mind, as Vicky writes, very, very important. Very important. Knicks, writes Melly. Yeah. The New York Knicks, Melly. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, I've been a fan for a long time. That mental health, I mean, my mental health was pretty good when the Knicks won, before the Knicks won. But man, when the Knicks won, it was just incredible. I think people know that on this platform because, of course, I did a live from New York City, literally a few minutes after the Knicks had won that championship. Literally 6 Saturdays ago today, Melly. 6 Saturdays ago, the Knicks won that championship. It's amazing. It's been 6 weeks now. 6 Saturdays ago, on June the 13th of this year. And here we are 6 Saturdays later. and I'm still celebrating the Knicks. No more, minus the champagne though. Not, but I'm still celebrating the Knicks. I walk around here with Knicks gear on all the time. So proud of this team. Um, there's a really tight. I have it just over here. Oh my gosh, should I just stretch for it? Yeah, I'll do it so you can see the rest of this particular bookshelf. So just bear with me for 1 second. I got it. So, Melly, just talk about this for a minute. I continue to celebrate this team, and one of the most recent pieces of memorabilia, excuse me, that I got recently, and I think I may have posted it on Substack, is this Wednesday, June 17th, 2026 edition of the New York Times, a special section on champions, and you may be able to see that. And so it's a 24-page section on the Knicks winning the championship, and there's a lot of great things in here. Um, there's a photograph, a big photograph of West 10th Street and West 4th Street, that great intersection in the West Village. Um, and these are the folks watching on Saturday 6 weeks ago, 6 Saturdays ago, right there in New York City. And there's a lot of other great things in here. A great, very touching article written by Harvey Arrington, who used to write with the New York Times in the sports and for the Knicks in the sports section. How he writes about a woman who had been a Knicks fan for decades and who had died just before, like about maybe 6 years or 8 years before this team won a championship. And she began as a fan in 1974, the year after their last championship, and then spent the rest of her life. She died of cancer in 2018. She never got to see her beloved New York Knicks win. In fact, that's her down here. You see the white woman there, um, down there. This is a really good article. I'll try to get. I'll send this article out to people. I think it's a really touching article. Uh, how this woman was such a big fan. She sat on the floor seats or very close to them. And she had a company that she built from scratch. Really good story of this particular woman. Forget her name now. And Harvey Arrington, who is no longer with the New York Times, but I think he just wrote this essay specially for this edition. And it was such a touching thing, you know. And so I say all of that because this is great. I mean, people's spirits in New York were uplifted, obviously, when the Knicks won. And you can order this. I can also send out how you can get this because I purchased this literally not while I was in New York. I purchased it back here in San Francisco, and I did it online, right? And so you can actually buy this. I think it costs $5, and I will send out the information to Melly. I'll put it actually. I'll put it on Substack, and I'll tag you, Melly, so that your husband can buy this because it's on sale and it's available. And I'm going to end up getting. I've got a second one of this that I'm going to frame, and because it's great. And I've got lots of things like this. And Melly talks about we all needed this. Listen, the thing is that this brought. I was about to get to this, Melly. This elevated a lot of people's mental health, not only in New York City but around the country, and I dare say even beyond, because many people wanted the Knicks to win. The Knicks have a team, and I don't want to go too far afield here from mental health, but this does apply to mental health. The Knicks had a team of people who many people found to be very likable, and I do too. These are very likable guys, and they all bought into the concept of teamwork, as you can also see here. They're all lifting the trophy together, all touching it together, right? And there were no big egos on the Knicks. You know, they had very likable people on the Knicks. They had great personalities. How many times have you seen a sports franchise or a sports team somewhere who have some people on it, but they're just big egos and not particularly likable. I mean, listen, I get it. Likable versus not likable is one thing, but bottom line is the Knicks are a very easy team to root for people who aren't Knicks fans, as I am, a big time Knicks fan. Um, and Melly's husband obviously is. Um, Objectively speaking, you could root for these guys. And many people around the country and beyond did root for these guys against what at least I saw as a young but very brash and arrogant San Antonio Spurs team with a guy on there who acted as if he was entitled to a championship and was as knocking people down on the floor and not getting any penalizing and wasn't being penalized for it. And the Knicks were a model of veteran leadership, consistency, teamwork, character, adversity, fighting back from adversity. And this helped everybody's mental health in New York. And being in New York was a tremendous thing for my mental health. I mean, I loved, and I go to New York anyway, and I used to live there for many years. But being there last month was absolutely incredible. People were so joyous, the spirits were lifted. You know, New York gets stereotyped about the kind of town it is. They're very nice people in New York City. They're nicer people in New York than they are here in San Francisco, believe me. They are. And they're gregarious, outgoing, energetic, friendly, honest, you know, and genuine, very genuine individuals, which you can't necessarily say about everybody in this neck of the woods. And so, and of course, there's people like that in New York too, but New Yorkers are generally real people, man. And we've been waiting for this for 53 years. I'm old enough to remember the last time they won in 1973. So as you can see here on the bottom, it says 1970, 1973, 2026, a generation, a coronation. Again, Smelly, I'm going to put a link to where you can buy this. It's $5, and then whatever shipping and handling wherever you are. And you can get this too. It's a 24-page edition. There's lots of I've got a load of these different editions. And also, Melly, if you become a paid subscriber, and you may be or may not be, but if you do become a paid subscriber, I'm giving away Knicks merchandise, championship merchandise, including the championship hat, including the official locker room T-shirts. I've got giveaways coming for paid subscribers that are with Knicks merchandise with their with championship merchandise. So, Melly, if you want to have a chance to win some merchandise for your husband, perhaps please become a paid subscriber. I'm dead serious. In fact, I don't want to have to stretch again, but I'm literally looking at one of the things I'm giving away in the next few weeks. So, and Melly writes, huge fan. So, this was a massive thing. This helped a lot of people's mental health. And and I went to the parade as well. Imagine that parade. There were 2 million people there. That helped people were smiling and laughing and being very joyous. You had a mayor here, a mayor. It helps to have also a mayor who exudes joy and actually believes in communicating and connecting with people. That also had an effect. But even that was even before the Knicks won. But it didn't hurt to have Mamdani be the mayor and bring his sense of joy and infectiousness and humor and not taking himself too seriously a lot of times and jumping into swimming pools with his clothes on and wading into Coney Island beach water with his clothes, with his suit on. I mean, that's all about joy and connection. So yes, mental health, definitely. This was a key component of that. And again, I'll put the link up and tag you, Melly, in a few minutes' time. But yeah, mental health is so important. I celebrate the same way Adam writes if the Pirates can finish the season 500 or above. Oh, man. Well, when will they do that? The last time, didn't they finish over 500 in 1992, Adam, when Sid Bream used to play for them? And then he went to Atlanta. Oh, my God. Anyway, gosh, you know about this history in baseball. Um, Knicks were just fighting with class, writes Melly. Yes, New Yorkers are great people, unlike here in Florida. Thanks, Omar. Yeah, Melly, it's so true. And I've been to Florida on a number of occasions. It's not the same, is it? And you live in Florida. It's not the same. New Yorkers are really great human beings, man. I'm not saying every one of them is that everyone, but the vast majority of New York is really good people, man. And you know where you stand with New Yorkers. You know, Florida, no man, don't let me go there. And Melly, you can write the book about that, I'm sure. I was pregnant with my older child in 1973, writes Vicky. See, Vicky, see, I mean, so you remember where you were and what you were doing and what you were experiencing in 1973. I'm old enough to remember that in 1973 when they last won. I mean, that's just unbelievable. I mean, Dollar Bill Bradley, Dave DeBuscher, Cazzie Russell, Willis Reed, Walt Frazier. I can rename the whole team. Jerry Lucas. Like I can literally remember Dave Stallworthy. Stallworth, excuse me, Dave Stallworth, Dean Meminger. I mean, I can name the whole bloody team from 1973. Earl the Pearl Monroe was on that team. Phil Jackson was on that team. I mean, it's like yesterday, but then to go 53 years. I mean, when these guys won this 6 Saturdays ago, oh my God. I have video. I probably have posted it before, maybe not. Maybe I sent it to paid subscribers only. I have video of when the place I was at with all these Knicks fans erupted. It was just incredible. And going to game 4 at Madison Square Garden, that did wonders for my mental health. Oh my God. And like I said, it wasn't like my mental health was really in a horrible place. It's just that that really enhanced your mental health, especially a team that you've invested in for that long and you've been so committed to. And bang, and knowing that you've gone through some of the heartbreaks with that team. I remember having season tickets in the 1990s with these guys, and they lost the NBA Finals on a couple of occasions, and they got so close in 1994, but yet so far. The heartbreak. And then to see these guys do this and win, and go to game 4 and see an incredible game like that and experience community with all these Knicks fans. I spoke to hundreds of people in New York in the time of hundreds. I'm not joking. Hundreds. And communicating with people and as has been talked about here, connecting with each other, communicating with other human beings, not just online here, but literally face to face outdoors is incredible for your mental health. And if you can get outdoors and if you're not too shy, please communicate and connect with people. I get it. You can't connect with any old person because there's some people you probably don't want to connect with, right? And women know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm telling you, folks, um, being in community is really good for your mental health. Love your platform. I'll be subscribing. Thank you, Melly. Melly, we love to chat here with Omar and each other. Yeah, Vicky's right. I almost said Victoria, maybe that, but Vicky, you're right. I totally agree. This is why this is important because I've said this a million times for everyone watching this. It's really important to connect. And when you have a Substack audience here, and this is to anyone who does a Substack live, who has a platform at all, whether you have a huge platform of hundreds of thousands or millions of subscribers, or whether you have only 50 subscribers or 10. If you're doing a Substack live, for goodness sakes, please connect with your audience. Please read out the comments. I get it. If you've got a massive platform and you've got a million comments, right, it's going to be really hard to read each and every one of them out. But read out as many as you can or read out a portion of them to let people know that you're engaging them. It's so important. And there's so many people who do these Substacks and they completely, and I get it, especially when they're talking to someone else, I get it. You're focused on someone else that you have on as a guest. But I still think even in some of those situations, you have to reach to your audience and connect with them, read out their comments. Let them know you see them because what you do if you don't do that is you take them for granted and people get the message and they say, oh, he's not even or she's not even bothering to even see this what I'm saying. I'm out. I'm not going to bother anymore. Now if you're saying some really ignorant offensive stuff, then I can understand why they wouldn't read out your comment. But if you're just connecting in here and you want to be heard, yeah, and you're not saying some really offensive stuff or sexist stuff or racist or anything else, stuff like that, yeah, then I'm going to engage your comment. I'm going to read it. I think the audience is the biggest part of these Substacks. Omar agreed, writes Angie. Um, Don Lemon, I agreed 100. Don Lemon had an episode titled "Down 29" based on the game 4 in the finals, which was very emotional, resonated with the audience. And how we can be down 29 points in our own lives. Wow, I missed that because I was probably celebrating still, actually. Because I saw Don, I actually met Don Lemon in New York. I actually took a selfie with him in New York, right outside Madison Square Garden, no less. And he interviewed me on something. I think it was with Trump saying something to Kristen Welker at the time. Um, but yeah, down 29 points. And maybe I did see part of that episode. I don't remember. But being at the Garden for that was incredible. Um, Being in that building for that. And who cares how much money you spend on that? But you won the game. You won the game. Your team came from a historic deficit to win. No one had ever come back from that many points. It's the largest comeback in an NBA playoff or NBA finals game in the history of the sport. I mean, that is a priceless thing to be there. And that photographs, video, it's just incredible. And many people around the world watched that game. The guy next to me was giving up on the game. I said, you know what? There's still a chance. We still got a quarter plus to go. We've come from 22 down with 7.5 minutes left in the game. We can definitely come back from 29 down with a quarter and a bit to go. And look what happened. Florida people are rude, writes Melly. We are friendly here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, I've been to Charlotte, North Carolina, Vicky, and I agree with you. Very friendly. And that's part of mental health as well, right? If you exude hostility to people, that has an effect on your mental health that is negative, deleterious, and also a deleterious effect on other people's mental health. So you can only put out in the world, right? You only get back in the world what you put out. Now, of course, you can put out a lot of positives and you get some people who are very negative back. That's their own stuff that they have to deal with, right? That's not you, that's them. So if you go out and say hello to someone and you're, just saying good morning, hello, and then there's a scowl in your direction back from the person, or they just don't say anything to you, that's not you, that's them. That's their stuff that they're dealing with. Whatever. They could be going through whatever it is they're going through, or they just could be rude or antisocial or whatever. Whatever. They could be going through some really tough stuff, whatever. But that's not you. You're presenting yourself into the world and you're presenting positive energy. That's good for your mental health, right? It is. If you present a positive, for example, I took a fairly long walk this morning before doing this. And said hello to pretty much everybody that I saw in the streets here. The Streets of San Francisco, a Quinn Martin production with Carl Malden and Michael Douglas. Those of you who are of an older variety know exactly what I am talking about. Um, But yeah, I was saying, and then there are people, some people responded and some people just grunted, and other people just looked at you as if you had 17 heads on your shoulders. But yeah, that's the way people are. You'll get people who will engage with you, which I think is good for your mental health, and then people who won't. I walked past, saw this old white woman, probably, I don't know how old she was, and she had a dog with her. And she said to me, "What did she say?" I bumped into her two different times, and I think one time, the second time, she said she had this, her cute little dog, and she said something to the effect of, "Yeah, he keeps me going," pointing at the little dog. And she had a big smile on her face when she said that. Pets can be good for your mental health. Maybe, maybe not, right? Doggy, a little doggy can be good for your mental health. Right? Or not, depending on whether you like pets or not. A cat might be good for your mental health or not, depending on if you like cats. Cats, you know, meow. Florida people are rude, Melly. I am sorry. I have not. I mean, I've been to Florida several times. I've yet to experience. I mean, there's been a couple of people that have been nice, but yeah. Charlotte, North Carolina, yeah, very people there are generally nice. The times I've been there, I agree, Vicky, very nice. I was living in Stamford, Connecticut, writes Vicky. Let's see. Yeah, Adam, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah, that's a rough deal. Yeah, I thought they had a pretty good pitcher on there this season, but I don't know, maybe not. In this tiny cockroach infested apartment in Stamford, Connecticut. Then I moved to a rental townhouse. And then just last year, writes Vicky, I realized I lost those years after we moved. I could not remember, writes Vicky, the townhouse at all or where it was, what it looked like. A total disassociation, birth trauma. I am just Vicky, not Victoria, writes Vicky. Vicky, thank you for sharing those personal moments. And you talked about birth trauma and those particular events and the dissociation from everything. And those things are very keen and sensitive memories and experiences that you've had. So thank you for trusting to share them with us. Thank you, Vicky. Connection is key, Omar. Thank you, Omar, says Vic. Excuse me, Melly, pardon me. Melly, thank you for your comment. I'm reading out comments here now before I close out what has now been, what, 2.5 hours. It never fails, does it? And listen, I don't think it's because I read at your comments that we go on for 2.5 hours or more. I just think that, the things we talk about and then further topics just come up and we talk about them. Um, but listen, as long as you don't mind being here for 2.5 hours, I mean, we've all got things to do, but as long as you don't mind being here for 2.5 hours, listen, tomorrow I'm not doing this because I said I'm not going to be able to do this tomorrow. So that's why I brought this through to today. But I can assure you, a week from tomorrow, I'll be back on Sunday doing Sundays with Omar at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So thank you for making some time here. I will read out the remainder of your comments and then bid you adieu for this particular Saturday, where it is now 1:30 almost in the afternoon on the east coast of the United States and 10:27 in the morning here on the west coast in California. Let me repeat that. From Vicky, Glenn Kirshner, she writes, reads names. Heather Cox Richardson reads out the places we live, etc. Yeah, those things are important, and they have bigger platforms. So yeah, they can't read out every comment like I can here, obviously, but at least the acknowledgement of people's names or people where they live. Also, someone who's very good with this is Scott. What's his last name? You know who I'm talking about. Formerly of CBS. Scott does a great job with this. He is a really good engager with people on Substack. He does read out people's comments and questions and tries to get them answered, and he responds. You know who I'm talking about. For some reason, I've forgotten. Senioritis here. Forgotten his last name. But yes, totally. He's very good at this too. Um, Mental health is so important. It really is. Still believe, writes Melly, when they were down. Yeah, I believed in the Knicks when they were down too. When I was there at the Garden for that game, Melly, as I mentioned, I was talking to this guy to the left of me, and he had his son there, and he was giving up. And I said, listen, as long as we have 1 quarter plus to go, we were late in the third quarter. I said, we have a chance. Remember against Cleveland, I said to him, we were down 22 with 7 minutes and 7.5 minutes left in the game. So we have more than 18 minutes left. We have about 18 minutes left in this thing. We can absolutely get this done. And we did. You got to believe in your team. Um, they had a great, and we know this because the Knicks in the fourth quarter of these games were locked tight on defense. They were excellent, and that's why the Knicks won the series against San Antonio. That's why the Knicks are here as NBA champions, because it didn't matter how much San Antonio was up in each and every one of these games. The Knicks found a way in 4 of the 5 games to come from behind and win with great defense in the fourth quarter. Same thing in game 4, same thing in game 5. I mean, the Knicks were down 10 in game 4 in the fourth quarter and they won. I think it was down 7, I think. They were down 7 going into that fourth quarter in game 5. Literally 6 Saturdays ago today. Jalen Brunson took the team, put the team on his back, and they won. And won the championship. And I keep replaying that last few minutes all the time. I replay the game 4. That's part of mental health, brings you joy. Walk around with a spring in your step, and you don't want to lose that. Now, you can find joy in other things too, and I do, believe me. But that moment, 53 years in the making, and being at that parade, Melly, 2 million of your best friends, 2 million of your closest Knicks buddies. It was just phenomenal, phenomenal. I'll never forget that as long as I live. I absolutely was so glad to be in New York when this was happening. And while I was not in San Antonio for the winning game five that won the championship, and people who went to that game will never forget it, I quite frankly would rather be in New York City when the Knicks win the championship than actually be at another arena on the road watching them win it in person. I literally would, because the amount of people that you connect to, that you hug and you jump up and down with and laugh with and talk to, oh, it's just and you'd be able to do that in San Antonio with the Knicks fans at the game, but being in New York City, all the cars, I mean, there were a couple set on fire in Times Square, for God's sakes, and a few people in Times Square, for God's sakes, got stabbed. Aside from that horror, everyone else in the city, as far as I know, was well behaved. And people got on buses. I told you about this, on top of buses, and started taking the one guy took his belt out of his pants and stood on top of the bus and started smacking the bus, whipping the bus with his belt on the roof of the bus. It was just only in New York. Thank you, Melly, for that. Boundaries. Know what is your stuff and what belongs to someone else. Yes. Boundaries, Vicky, are very important. I'm going to be talking about boundaries, Vicky, coming up in the next week or two when I start to do the giveaways again. And when I talk about men and women and about consent and about sex and about intimacy and about those kinds of things, I'm going to be talking about boundaries and knowing what those are, having them, negotiating them, maybe not having them, maybe how that works for people, some people, and how it doesn't. And if it, I'm going to go into all this stuff. Everybody will want to be watching that live, and I'll give fair warning and fair notice about it. It's going to be open, it's going to be frank. It's going to be probably quite explicit within reason. I'm not going to be doing things for titillation. I'm going to be very, frank, and I'm going to be explicit, and I'm going to be really open and upfront and honest about what I see as, how men and women relate to each other on these levels, whether it's on intellectual levels, but particularly on levels of intimacy, because intimacy is different from sex, right? Sex is maybe part of that, but intimacy is a different realm, right? Intimacy is more wide and more wide open and more broad and encompassing, right? And sex is also broad too. And then there's intercourse. That's different too. Everybody thinks that intercourse is sex. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is, but it's not the only form of sex, folks. But that's how we in America are like, that's where we think. I'm going to get into all of this, not now, but in a future Substack Live on a Sunday, maybe in the next week or two. And that's when I'm going to give away that book from Christine Ember that I talked about earlier called Rethinking Sex, a Provocation. That's the subtitle. So if you're an adult and you're interested in this conversation, then you will want to be watching that live. And I'll talk about that in the next week or two. And I'll be doing that because I think that's stuff that we need to talk about because people don't think about shit like this. And when they meet somebody or if they're married to someone, I don't know. It's different for every marriage, okay? I'm not trying to get into people's marriages, but the level of communication changes. I'm sorry. When you're married for a certain period of time, I'm sorry. I'm just being frank, right? The level of communication is different during the marriage than it might be at the beginning. Or maybe if you're lucky enough to be in a marriage where the communication has been brilliant, perfect. More power to you. But in the average relation, not even just the average marriage, in the average relationship, when you're communicating around intimacy and around sex and around intercourse and around all these things, and it change the levels change. I'm sorry, they do. They just do. And look, it's just a fact. You can disagree if you want, but that happens because things change in relationships, dynamics change, your body changes, all these. So I'm going to get into all this stuff, but I'm going to marshal it with a focus and I'm going to advocate solutions. And I'm not a sex therapist. I guarantee you I'm not. If you want, if you're interested in, you've got people like Esther Perel. You've got the late great Dr. Ruth was out there. Um, And I'm sure there's millions of other people. But what I'm saying is not modeled on anything they say. This is something that's completely coming from me. And I'm not a therapist. I have to say that, okay? Because some people might mistake me for one. But that's, listen, I just wanted to promo that for the future. All right. And it's not going to be about titillation because that's not, this is really like mature, adult, like honest, open, frank conversation about things that I don't see being talked about on here at all. And I think these issues are, I think these issues are important. Okay. Anyway, that's me. And I'll talk about that and I'll give away the particular book as I talked about called Rethinking Sex by Christine Ember. That's for paid subscribers only, though. You've got to be a paid subscriber to have a chance to win that book. Anyway, back to this, and I'm reading out your comments, and then I'll say goodbye. Boundaries, yes, that boundaries thing, Vicky, is massively important, and that's why I wanted. That's why I veered off for a bit to talk about the forthcoming Substack live I'm going to do, which boundaries is going to be a big part of. Really big part of. Thank you for that, Vicky. Love Huntersville writes Adam and late night runs to KFC on North Tryon. Omar Melly writes, I'm the type I say hello to everyone and will hold a door for everyone. Yeah. Melly, me too. I do that for the most part as well. There's some people I will not say hello to because I mean, there's some people it's like, okay, I'm gonna leave that person alone. They look like they're going through something, or they may be, I mean, frankly, maybe having a mental health challenge, and I just want to leave them alone. Now, there are people who say, well, that's the reason why I want to not leave them alone. But for me, it depends, right? These things depend. But yes, I'm like that too, Melly. You know, and I'm used to people not responding, and I'm used to people also saying hello. And sometimes saying, again, speaking of mental health, saying hello can make a big difference to your mental health rather than just going around sticking with earphones in your ears and not saying anything to anyone. Saying hello makes a difference. It makes a difference to you and it can make a difference to the person you're talking to. Someone you may be talking to may not have had a hello said to them in weeks, may not have been talked to in days, and may crave that connection and interaction. Some people may not, but that's the way it goes. And yeah, holding a door open is also good for mental health. And it also says that you've got manners and that you appreciate, actually, you have some consideration for people. And guaranteed that affects their mental health because you hold open a door, Melly, obviously, for someone who comes through it. That makes their mental health a little bit better too. Because it says here, this is a considerate human being. And this person named Melly is being considerate. So she's holding open a door for somebody. And I feel good because of that. Someone's showing some consideration for me. And they don't have to know me to show that consideration. Hence, here's the door open. Thank you. Right? Manners, I'm a big fan of. That's my other my other pet peeve, right? Is manners and people who are late. Not to Substacks. I think people are being sarcastic with me when they go, I'm sorry I'm late. On the on the Substack, it doesn't matter. It's just if you're meeting somebody, or you have to arrange something to be at a place, and someone anyway. I don't want to go back down that road. I've said this a million times. Those are my two pet peeves: people being late and people who don't have any manners. And holding doors open displays manners. And I get it. Not everyone's going to say thank you, and I'm not necessarily looking for that. But manners are nice, right? It's nice to say please and thank you, right? And I get it. We're in an age now where a lot of people don't do that, or their parents didn't raise them to do that. Thank you, Melly. I do it for myself, really not for them when they're rude. Melly writes, "Yeah, no, I think that is the thing. It has to become, in some ways, it does become a bit more of a selfish thing, or doing it for yourself, right? And that's not necessarily selfish. I mean, I mean, I characterize it as such, Melly. But no, I mean, yeah, you're doing it for your own sense of um, well-being and just for your own sense of how you want to live your life with joy and positivity, right? Being a uplifted and uplifting person is great for your mental health. If you speak positively about people, yeah, that elevates their mental health and yours, and hopefully you're being sincere about it, right? But if people speak positively of you, it elevates your mental health. It does. And if you speak positively of other people, it elevates their mental health. And it's just about the connection that we have. We are nice. The people hanging out in the Mike Flynn compound in Florida aren't cool. Yeah, you better believe it. Adam and I agree. And see, we got people arranging meetings with each other. Look at this chat. See, so what happens, right? You talk about voting, you talk about mental health, and people make arrangements to meet each other. How about that? I think that's really good. I like that, right? And there'll be times where I get to meet some Substackers if they're not too far afield. Um, but it's really a great thing. Connection's important. We live in this techno bubble, especially here in San Francisco, and all this AI and this bullshit and this automation and self-service checkouts. And I get it, maybe you use them, but self-service checkouts, I think of people's jobs being lost. Whenever I see those things, I think of a family that's not getting fed. I think of a family who, can't meet their mortgage payment now because, you know, everything is all machines. And that's where we are now, unfortunately. Or that glorified La Quinta, I think it's called Mar-a-Lago. Yeah. Um, Adam writes, I am resting for the rest of the day, writes Vicky. Sundays with Omar. Yes, Vicky, I'm glad you're resting, but certainly with tomorrow, you can rest a bit more if you wish, because there will be no Sundays with Omar tomorrow, just as a programming reminder again for everybody. No Sundays with Omar tomorrow. I won't be able to do one tomorrow. That's why I'm doing this today. But we'll be back the following Sunday, where we normally are at 8 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you. Thank you, Vicky. LOL, Omar. Sundays with Omar, yes. Vicky, thank you for being a regular visitor to Sundays with Omar, and for being a paid subscriber, for your abiding support. I greatly appreciate it. And again, stay tuned for the giveaway. The giveaway is coming back. The giveaways, plural, are coming back next month. And the first one will be that book. Your names will be, if you're a paid subscriber, your name will be in a hat with the other paid subscribers for that book. And if I pull your name out, bingo, you are the winner. Whomever you will be, we will see. It's called Rethinking Sex, A Provocation by Christine Ember. And I can't wait to give that book away. I really cannot. And talk about what I was saying earlier. I'm going to be talking about regarding the subjects, and that book is a terrific book. I recommend that book to anybody, and I might give away more than one copy of it, not at the same time, but I may do successive giveaways or subsequent giveaways of the book again. But definitely next month there certainly will be a giveaway of one copy of that book, because I've read that book a couple of times now, because sometimes I do reread books that I have, and sometimes I or read sections of books that I've read. Some of those books you see behind me, this is just a small portion of the books I have. But I think that that particular book, Rethinking Sex, is a really necessary read for anyone. For anyone, it really is. Anyhow, thank you very much for that, Vicky. Renessa Liu has joined us. Hello, Renessa. Excuse me, my mispronunciation. I apologize. Renessa Liu has joined us. Thank you, Renessa, for being here. Great to see you. Angie Decadence and Deanna has joined us. Thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Omar. See you next week, writes Melly. Thank you, Melly. See you next time, next week. Glenn does read the comment section, writes Vicky. Scott McFarlane. Thank you, Vicky. Yes, goodness gracious. Why couldn't I remember his name? Scott McFarlane was the guy I was trying to remember from earlier when I said Scott is very good with reading out comments. Very good at it. He's very good. And he has a big platform. And it's not that he reads every single one like I do, because my platform's not the same as his, but he does engage his audience. I think that's so important on Substack, on anything, but especially on Substack. When you're on this platform, you got to engage your audience. You have to respect your audience. You have to dialogue with your audience. Yeah, and I get it. When there's a guest on, you can't do it as much, because I've on the few occasions I've had guests on here, I've entertained maybe two or three comments, but it's difficult to do that a lot when you're having guests on. So I understand why that some of these folks may not be able to do that, but you still have to acknowledge your audience and connect with them. You just have to. Scott McFarland writes, Terry Ann, thank you, Terry Ann, as well for that. I just couldn't believe why I just completely senior moment drawing a blank on Scott McFarland. But thank you, Terry Ann, as well for that. Just crazy how I couldn't remember that. Can't remember everything, but Scott McFarlane, my God, he's only been on Substack for what, 3 months now? Whatever it is. Engaging with the audience is important, writes Vicky. Jim Acosta will read some comments. Yep. I think Jim Acosta's done that in the past. And who else? There's one or two others as well I can think of. But yeah, Jim Acosta has done that. I know that McFarland is very good with that. And I know that someone else, Heather Cox Richardson has done that from time to time. And Glenn Kirshner, who I haven't seen, and I haven't really listened or watched his Substack live casts, but you are obviously telling me, folks who do, that he does engage with comments, and I think that's really good. Substack is to us is like the Rock. Is Adam's full of jokes here. It's great. We know everyone on here. Substack is to us like the Rock was to Pookie in New Jack City. If anybody doesn't know New Jack City, that film, please look it up. By the way, Judd Nelson was in that film too, Adam, as I'm sure you know. Since you said you resembled Judd Nelson, excuse me, Adam, that you resembled him in your days at school. It came from the old AOL when we had chat rooms. Yeah, I do too. Vicky, that's so true. AOL was great fun, wasn't it? File done. And chat rooms are fun there. Yes, they were. CompuServe, AOL, yes, Vicky and Adam, the good old days. Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff. Can't wait. Love boundaries. Melly, I'm going to be talking about that a lot. And again, when I do this, Melly, I'm going to be also talking about no boundaries too, because people, again, and I'm kind of maybe previewing a little bit of this, there are people who negotiate to not have boundaries too. And as long as the parties are okay with that consensually, then that's also permitted too, right? But then, of course, there is a fundamental thing about boundaries. And that might even be a boundary when you think about it. The idea that two people, or more than two in some cases, may agree not to have boundaries is a boundary. It's a rule. So really, that is a boundary too. Anyway, so really you can't even erase that, right, in a way. Oh, I'm gonna definitely be talking about this. Oh, Omar's gonna be bringing out the inner Dr. Ruth. Right, Adam. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, so am I actually, Adam. I'm not going to be talking like this though, Dr. Ruth. Westheimer. May the Lord rest her soul. I really, it's a shame she's no longer with us, but she was incredible. But anyway, no, I'm not modeling myself after any of these people. This is all totally independent of any of that. And all of those people have their place, the Esther Perels and the Dr. Ruths of the world and all these other folk out here. Yeah, no, I'm talking about this from my perspective as a man and as a straight man and as a straight black man too. So those things are all in the mix for yours truly. Now let me read. Oh gosh, I just had something else here. Vicky writes, "I am not a therapist at all. I do have lots of knowledge I do have lots of knowledge and information." Yeah, Vicky, I completely understand. Yes, 100%. Experience is the best teacher, and having knowledge and information are paramount. And yeah, a therapy, being a therapist about this, yeah, that's why I say I am not a therapist, because some people might think, wow, did you get some degree on but it's like, no, no, no. It's just like you say, Vicky, lots of knowledge, experience, information, and obviously opinions about the information, the experiences, and the knowledge, and transmitting and communicating that to people, communicating that knowledge to them, transmitting experiences to people or knowledge to people is really important in that way. Omar writes, Angie, excuse me, Angie Decadence. Omar, looking forward to that conversation from your perspective. Thank you, Angie. I look forward to seeing you here. It'd be great to see you here, Angie. And I will be again. I'll tell people. I was going to say I'll warn people. I will tell people when on Substack when that's going to be happening in the next week or two. Um, Very, very important. Vicky writes, Omar saying hello, opening the door, telling someone their shoes are nice. Yeah, yeah, these are all good things about manners and being sociable and connecting with people. This is really important. It's very important. And I think people should never discount things like this. These are small but significant things. And the small things are the big things. So, yes, Vicky, agreed. JE writes, yeah, I attended late, just saw it live 10 minutes ago. Yeah, there's problems with these. I don't know what it is, JE. There's a lot of stuff that goes on with these notifications on Substack that are a little bit off. Manners must be taught, writes Vicky. Patrick Ryan has said hello to us. Um, you never know how that one connection will impact a person. Vicky, 100%. As I had mentioned, you are absolutely right. Always good vibes on this specific Substack Live. Thank you, Angie, for that. I appreciate that that is your sentiment. I try my best. Again, I'm very much someone who is upfront about what the goal of these things is. It's not to entertain. It's to inform and to educate as best I can with the knowledge I have. It's not to be presumptuous or to be boastful. It's just, hey, look, we all have something to offer in this world. And for me, it's about educating people and also having a laugh as well, of course. But it's really about connecting with people and informing them that they've got more power than they think. You watch these cable networks, you'd think that the world is falling apart. And yeah, the world is not in a great state. Has it ever been? But my goodness me, all this conversation, around stuff that to me is really, I'm sorry, it's not nearly as bad as you're portraying it to be. And I'm not trying to be naive here. We have a mission statement, I talked about it earlier, and that is to vote and to educate people and to inform people and register them and to pass on information and facts. We have more power than we think. Good vibes. I do not like self-service checkouts, writes Vicky. Avoid them if all possible. If possible. Yeah, I do as well. Diana Feather. Hello to you. Diana, thank you for being here. We are going to deep. Oh, Adam says we're going to go into sink into a deep depression tomorrow if any of us end up calling crisis and they cut us off. We'll be sending you the hospital bill. No, no. That's not. Oh boy, this is where I actually for the first time. I drink some water today. No, for the first time on this Substack live. Adam, that's good. Very funny. Good fun. Good stuff. Hello, Omar and chat people. Hello, Diana. Nice to see you. Hello, Diana. Writes Angie. And Angie is being said hello to by Diana as well. Glenn is on at 8:30 p.m. on most nights for our community meetings. That's great, Vicky. Glenn Kirshner. I will have to watch one of his lives. I think I've probably maybe seen one a long, long time ago, if at all. I don't remember. Maybe not though. I really don't remember. So I'll have to go and look at that when I have a chance to. AOL was great fun. Yeah, I met someone many moons ago on an AOL. That was really wild, actually. Kind of like Substack sometimes. Oh dear, oh dear. Ah, dear, oh dear, oh dear. Great stuff here. Great colloquy in the chats. Yes, we do educate and inform. Diana, that's really great. And those are great things for mental health as well. Really powerful. Educating and informing people is just fantastic. Um, you know, it's just there's no need to apologize there, Adam. For what? What are you apologizing for? I don't know. Um, Terry says, Glenn Kirshner, Terry Ann, sorry. There's nothing to dial back, Adam. You got to be you. Be yourself. I would never, unless you're a racist or a bigot, which I don't think you are, but be yourself as a person. You have a right to be jovial. You have a right to make jokes. You still have a right to speak in this country. Last time I checked. So be who you are, man. And the thing is, Adam, unfortunately, this country doesn't let lots of people be who they really are, right? This country doesn't let black people be who they are and have black joy and just be themselves and be confident. This country is afraid of that, right? A lot of white America is terrified of it, right? And this white system is terrified of it. This white system's terrified of people who are trans persons. They don't want trans people to be who they are. Oh, we got to have conversion therapy and change this and do this and do that, and we got to pray the gay away and all this other non. I mean, this country is terrified because really the country is terrified of itself. Those white Americans who traffic in this, and it's many white Americans, of course, not all of you, but the many millions of white Americans who traffic in this, really what they are is terrified of themselves. That's what it really comes down to. So James Baldwin talked about this all the time about being it's like, and he said white America at large is just really terrified of itself, and they know the truth about black people and about their role in in enslaving black people, their ancestors, and knowing the truth about black people and white people in America, but they lie about that truth to themselves and to black people, which he's absolutely right about. I mean, I could recommend a million Baldwin books to you. There's The Price of the Ticket, the fire next time. I can go through the whole list. Notes of a Native Son, Go Tell on the Mountain, Another Country, Giovanni's Room, The Evidence of Things Not Seen. I can just go through 100 books. I can go through a million books. Um, you know, um, if Beale Street Could Talk, um, No Name in the Street. A great line from No Name in the Street, one of Baldwin's great books, is this, and I'm trying to I'll paraphrase it, is that um, people pay for what they do, but really they really pay for who they have become, right? And I can't remember the rest of the quote. Um, People pay for what they do, but really they pay for what they have allowed themselves to become. That's part of it from the book, from his book No Name in the Street, for what they have allowed themselves to become, and they pay for it simply by the lives they lead. That's another proportion of the quote, and it's really true, and that's true of the people of the regime that we have in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now. It's true. It really is. Um, Let me see here. So yeah, this is really great. People have to be who they are, man. And I'd rather people in this chat be jovial and joke around and make fun in a way that's lighthearted and funny than people be bitter and racist or sexist or, any other ism or ist, right? I would rather people be free and comfortable to be who they are. And the thing is, that's the thing about the United States. As I finish out reading your comments, people are not made to be comfortable with who they are. The country keeps telling you that you've got to be this, whatever this is. And the thing is, the this that a lot of white America and white systems tell you to be comfortable being, the white people who tell you this aren't even comfortable with being what this is. They're not even comfortable with it. But they're telling you to fit into this narrow ass box. And then what happens? Speaking of mental health, since we've been talking about it, dear viewer, people bleach their skin, they do things to their eyes, they have tummy tucks, they lighten their skin, or they darken their skin, right? Because, hey, you want to look more like me. And I appreciate that. But, people aren't happy with who they are. And they spend millions of dollars, if they've got that kind of money, on procedures and Botox and this and that. Does it make them happier people? Does it make their souls more enriched? Mental health situation, right? But again, the country doesn't allow for people to be who they are because you've got to now fit into this model. It's kind of like what happened with what'd you call it? Um God damn, I forgot it. It was something I was going to cite something where people are being told that they had to be this. Oh, what Madison Avenue does to women in a very sexist way and a very ageist way. If you're not 24 anymore and you're female and you're not 24 anymore, this society considers you to be so-called quote unquote damaged goods past your prime. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? You're not 24 anymore, and now you've got no value. It's just so sexist and so ageist and so ridiculous. And if only somebody told this culture and this society that as you get older, actually you're more beautiful and you're more interesting and more attractive and more just worldly. And you've got experience. Why would you want to be stunted at 24 and think you're now no longer viable to anybody or to yourself? Forget anybody, to yourself, because now you're no longer 24. What? Just really extraordinarily crazy, but people buy into this stuff. And it really does damage people's mental health. Imagine the psyche of the average black woman. Oh, if you want to be in this place, you've got to change your hair. You've got to stop having those braids. You got to stop doing this. So trying to deny your Africanness, your blackness, the white society is the white systemic society and the systems are telling you that you've got to do that. That's a mental health situation there now too. That's the racism of a system and of a group of people. And and a black woman's mental health now is now being taxed, as it is, as we are every day as black people. Our mental health takes a hit every day on the racism of white society and a white system. So that's mental health right there too. So let's read out these comments. I am white and not afraid, writes Vicky. Entitlements and isms, but reflection in the mirror is self. Diana Feather, great comment. I read Go Tell It on the Mountain, adds Diana. Great book, isn't it? It's kind of kind of autobiographical, isn't it? Last time I remembered reading that. Somewhat. James Baldwin, of course, is a Harlemite. And so that's great stuff. That's a great book. I have a number of really great books of his. I have pretty much all of his books. I have all of his books actually, except for The Evidence of Things Not Seen. Um, and then he has compendiums of books. But also, I want to recommend this documentary. I've done it many times. It's called "I Am Not Your Negro." In fact, I gave away a copy of it when I was doing the giveaways for pay subscribers a few months ago. And I'm going to restart those, as I said, in next month. I gave away a disc, a DVD actually, for "I Am Not Your Negro." It's a fantastic documentary directed by Raoul Peck, who is on Substack, by the way. I don't think he uses it that often, but he's on Substack. Raoul Peck, Raoul Peck, Peck, is his last name. And he's directed many documentaries, including Orwell 2 plus 2 equals 5, which came out last year. But he did 10 years ago, a film was released, a documentary 10 years ago that was released called "I Am Not Your Negro," about James Baldwin and his unfinished manuscript entitled "Remember This House." And the voice of James Baldwin is narrated by Samuel L. Jackson, who does an excellent job. It's his best piece of acting I think Samuel Jackson's ever done that's not in front of a camera. And there's clips of Baldwin. It's a great documentary. Please watch that documentary, "I Am Not Your Negro." That's fascism, a forced national identity. It certainly is, J.E. Certainly is. A country that doesn't allow people to be itself. You're told to assimilate into America. Assimilate into what? Really, it's assimilating into whiteness. That's really what it is at its core. And people change their names, and I understand persecution. You don't want to have the name. I get that. I'm not saying that that's not something people could do if they want to. But from day one, we're told to just melt into whatever this is. And you learn that it's really about melting into whiteness and disclaiming your heritage and your history and just erasing that to be somebody new. At least that's the way I look at it. I mean, I think that's exactly what it is. The joys of getting older, writes Vicky, can I can toss away the isms and the shoulds and the woulds. It is so freeing. Yeah, Vicky, I agree. It's so liberating to get older. I think John Lemon or Jack Lemon. Don Lemon. I'm not talking about Don Lemon or Jack Lemon, the actor who is no longer with us. But I am talking about the other guy who's no longer with us. John Lennon sang a song called "Borrowed Time." And he talked about this as well in a few of the lines of that song. And he talked about, listen, I used to fret and worry about whether this woman loved me and whether I had a pimple on my face. But now I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. I know this woman loves me, he says in the song. And he's talking about Yoko Ono. So it's like, I don't give a damn. But we worry about this shit, many of us, when we're 24, 34, or a little bit older than that, 44. We worry about this kind of stuff. And then you get to a certain age, you're like, fuck that. I don't give two shits about that stuff anymore, man. Because you know that time, you're probably more closer to the end of your time than the beginning of it. I hate to put it that way, but it's, we then become much more, I think, liberated and perhaps a bit more uninhibited, you know? Maybe not. Uninhibited is different from being liberated. I'll have to talk about that in my TED talk, in my Sundays with Omar, on the whole thing on boundaries and men and women. There is a difference between those two things. I think there's definitely a difference between being uninhibited. Oh my God, uninhibited and liberated. Those things are two very different things. I think they are. Anyway, I'll explain why I think that in the next week or two. Omar 100% writes, Angie, decadence. I'm sure it was about something I said a few minutes ago. Unfortunately, I don't remember because I didn't read your comment out synonymously. So I apologize to you there, Angie. Diana Feather, because the reflection in the mirror, they do not relate to nor identify that. Yeah, that's right. And Diana, I agree 110% with you. And they're afraid of it. They're afraid of it too, because they're afraid of looking at themselves in the mirror and the things that come with that for them. So yeah, um, and especially when they see you being a confident woman, and I think you're a sister, you're a black woman. I remember you telling me. I think you said that. Um, a confident black woman scares the hell out of them. They are afraid of that. They're afraid of a confident black man. Many white Americans, and again, I said many. I didn't say all. But there's a great, I mean, just ask us as black people when we walk down the street, just look at the reactions we get from, you can see it on white people's faces. I mean, much less anything they may say or not say to us. Um, oh my gosh, there's so many comments, and I fear that this batch is going to just go out kaput like it did a couple of weeks ago. Adam says they are the most inferior, immature, and overly sensitive and heightened frightened group of people I've ever seen. They need to stop calling themselves white supremacists. I agree. There's nothing supreme about them, Adam. Nothing. And I can't stand when people keep using the language, oh, white supremacy. No, there's nothing supreme about what these people are doing. Nothing. It's actually the complete opposite. And let's not I'm not saying you, Adam, I'm just saying in general, let's not put euphemisms for what these folks are doing, who are doing it. The damn Stepford Wives, writes Vicky, yeah. I don't want to be 24, 44, 54, and on up. Aging is so freeing to me. Yeah, aging is a really freeing thing. I know people talk about the stigmas of age, and people talk about, yeah, you get older and these health things. Yeah, I know. And the creakiness and the bones and this, and I know, believe me, I experienced it. I'm sure a lot of people have in this chat. But there is a component with mental health that really is a freeing thing getting older. Yeah, white inferiority groups, writes Adam, if anything. Yeah, exactly. It's inferiority and a massive inferiority complex that many white people have, and especially in the United States. It's very true. and it's always projected onto black people, first and foremost, right? And look, we just have to be frank about this and stop. I'm fed up with people beating around the bush. Ooh, I'm not trying to see, no, you have to speak your truth, and you have to call a thing a thing. I'm a fervent believer in that. Shrinking others to build their own shit. Yeah, that's exactly it, Vicky. 62, I'm 62-year-old black woman embracing all of me. All right, Diana. Love it. That's the way. Yes, Omar, it is. I love it, Diana. Thank you. See, that's affirmation. And we as black people have to continue to affirm ourselves and keep our black joy going, right? And keep our pride and our excellence going, and our character and spirit moving. Our ancestors did it, and we're going to do the same thing, no matter what. Judy has joined us. I want to say thank you very much indeed to everyone. The batch is going to run out soon, so I want to just say thank you for being here for the last 3 hours plus. Woo! I'll see you next week. There is no Sundays with Omar tomorrow. As a reminder, I will see you all next week, a week from tomorrow, back on Sunday, but a week from tomorrow, okay? And I might announce that might be the time I do the giveaway of the book and talk this topic about intimacy and men and women and all these other topics, boundaries, sex, consent, very important things, not for titillation. This is like really real talk. We as grown adults can be open with each other and explore these things, okay? That is next week or the week after. Please take care. Enjoy your Sunday as well. I'll see you next Sunday, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your weekend. You've been watching Saturday with Omar Special Edition. Please be a subscriber, become a paid subscriber. That'd be greatly appreciated. You get a chance to win that book, Rethinking Sex, A Provocation by Christine Ember. If you become a paid subscriber, your name goes into a hat with a big chance to win. Or become a free subscriber if you wish. Either is appreciated. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. This has been Saturdays with Omar. Take care now.